Chapter 2454. It's Big Brother Lin's voice. Menglier was overjoyed. Who is it? The old man with the cane and the other heaven highnesses made their moves at lightning speed and shattered the saber glow into pieces with ease. At the same time, they all turned around and looked at the person who had just arrived. Big Brother Lin, hurry up and leave. They are all peak heavenly venerables. Menglier suddenly reacted and shouted anxiously. She knew that Lin Xiaoji was also a peak heavenly venerate powerhouse, and she also knew that Lin Xiaoji was a top genius. But in her eyes, a heavenly venerate could never win against 11 heavenly venerables. Xiaoji. Heavenly venerables Long Ruo and Yen Ming were stunned when they saw the newcomer. Ever since they parted ways with the Shenyang Orthodoxy, they had not seen Lin Xiaoji for a long time. After they learned that Lin Xiaoji had failed to advance to Heavenly Venerate, they also left a message for Qin Nan. They had also probed Qin Nan. How could there be any more in the Blue Dome? There were benefits, but Qin Nan did not say, only saying that he did not know. The two of them just took it that Qin Nan really did not know, and did not follow up. Senior Long Ruo? Senior Yen Ming? Qin Nan was also stunned. He did not expect to meet an old friend here. Lin Xiaoji, could you be that? The peerless genius Lin Xiaoji, who suddenly soared to 9th place in the last Heavenly Venerate battle and contended against 4 Heavenly Venerables by himself? The old man with the walking stick and the other Heavenly Venerables were stunned. They did not expect that the Big Brother Lin that the beautiful woman mentioned would actually be him. That's me. Seniors, she is my sister. I hope that seniors can give me some face and not attack her. This junior will be eternally grateful. Qin Nan cupped his fist. Since there was an acquaintance here, he would not make a move if he could. Moreover, Heavenly Venerables Long Ruo and Yen Ming had helped him a lot. Give you some face? The old man with the walking stick reacted and said with a smile that was not a smile. May I ask little friend Lin, what face do you have? After you failed to advance to Heavenly Venerate, your ranking on the Heavenly Venerate list fell to 60 or 70. Isn't it a big blow? Furthermore, even if your ranking didn't drop, you still have a battle prowess comparable to the 9th ranker on the Heaven Pole list. But so what? You are still nothing more than a mere sovereign. We 11 peak Empyreans are here. Why should we give you face? The other Empyreans all laughed softly. Although they didn't say anything, their hearts were filled with disdain. Of course, as for Ji Xian, who was by Qin Nan's side, a peak sovereign lord, he was completely ignored, which was a huge blow to him. Xiao Ji, don't interfere in the matters here. Quickly leave. Don't worry, since this woman is your younger sister, then I can guarantee that we won't hurt her. Empyrean Longruo said solemnly. That's right, Xiao Ji. Leave now and we'll pretend this never happened. Holy Venerate Yenming said seriously. The two of them still hoped that nothing would happen to Qin Nan. Qin Nan's expression did not change as he said coolly, Senior, is there really no leeway to negotiate? Since that's the case, then forgive this junior for being rude and directly attacking you guys. The moment these words came out, Menglier Empyrean Longruo and Holy Venerate Yenming's faces changed. Xiao Ji, do you know what you're saying? Don't be stubborn, hurry up and leave for me. Not to mention the current you, even if the current Song, Zhou Di and the rest came, they would definitely not be a match for us when encountering a lineup like ours. Empyrean Longruo immediately shouted with a voice transmission. Ha ha. The old man with the walking stick was slightly stunned for a moment, then immediately let out a loud laugh. A terrifying aura was released from his body, rising steadily as if he had turned into an ancient giant, looking down at Qin Nan and Ji Xian. Are you worthy? Just 3 short words like thunder exploded between heaven and earth. There was no need to say anything unnecessary. As the number 1 Empyrean of the previous era, plus his colleagues beside him, he had the capital to look down on Qin Nan, this peerless genius. F***ck, looking down on people. Ji Xian could not help but curse in his heart. Qin Nan frowned slightly. He did not bother about it. He looked at Emperor Longrua and Holy Venerate Yenming and transmitted his voice. Senior, can you not attack my sister or her altar anymore? Emperor Yenming blurted out without hesitation. Lin Xiaoji, that's impossible. Do you know what the runes on the altar mean? Besides, this isn't something you can take part in. Hurry up and apologize to Senior Longrua and I will definitely. Qin Nan shifted his gaze away from him and looked at Emperor Longrua. Xiaoji, since you've said so, I can do it, but you really can't afford to offend these people. If you really infuriate them, even I won't be able to protect you. Emperor Longrua transmitted his voice with a wry smile. Although he was extremely unwilling to say it, he had promised Qin Nan that he would complete 3 tasks for Qin Nan. Counting the debts from before, he had completed 2 tasks, and it was now the 3rd. The runes on the altar and Qin Nan's sister were indeed a great opportunity. He was extremely tempted, but he could not go against his conscience. That's enough. Senior Yenming has helped me before, I'll go easy on you later. Qin Nan withdrew his gaze. Go easy on you? Emperor Longrua was astounded. He even wondered if he had heard it wrong. Meanwhile, the old man with the walking stick withdrew his aura. He withdrew the smile on his face and said calmly, Since you know Longrua and Yenming, and they are speaking up for you, I won't mind your rudeness. You're also an exceptional genius, I don't want to kill you. However, you can piss off. Before he could finish speaking, a ferocious saber chi, like a divine light from the beginning of the world, slashed in front of them. Qin Nan waved his hand and formed an immortal saber with the force of the heavens and earth. Following it, he sprang forward like a godly dragon. Crap! Emperor Longrua and Meng Li were startled. How bold! The eyes of the old man with the walking stick widened. His figure expanded as the terrifying force of the Heaven Highness realm continued to boil in his body. The walking stick in his hand emitted a tremendous glow and stabbed forward with a tremendous force, shattering the saber intent. The saber intent shattered into pieces. Do you think you're the strongest person in the world? You're so full of yourself, you're so reckless. I'm going to teach you a lesson today. The old man with the walking stick snapped. His aura soared into the sky. Chapter 2455. Art of Chaos Destruction. The old man with the walking stick dashed forward and arrived in front of Qin Nan within an instant. He raised his walking stick and stabbed forward. As the strongest Heaven Highness of the previous era, who had accumulated a few thousand years, there was no doubt that the old man with the walking stick was extremely powerful. The moves that he had mastered had become extremely simple. In the eyes of an outsider, his attack this time was completely ordinary without any highlight. However, in reality, all the profoundness and power had been gathered to an incomparably shocking level. Once it was unleashed, it would surely destroy everything in its path. Qin Nan's eyes remained calm. His figure remained the same, and he did not execute any powerful moves. Just like the old man with the walking stick, he only slashed forward. Bang! Following a huge blast, the heavens and earth trembled vigorously. The east, south, west, and north stone statues blossomed with radiance, protecting the altar and preventing it from being affected. You're quite impressive to be able to survive my attack. However, that's all you can do. The cries of dragons echoed inside the old man's body. Different godly glows were emitted from different parts of his body. He was like the Lord of Dragons with a tremendous dragon aura. He had not fought for 4,000 years after becoming the strongest Heaven Highness in the previous era. He was not afraid of the experts of the world, but he was focusing on 2 things. First, he was looking for the secrets of the Supreme Highnesses. Second, he was practicing the supreme arts of the dragons. Third, the sacred body of 10,000 dragons. Humans had 3 kinds of power: flesh, soul, and will. The stronger one's cultivation was, the less important the flesh was. However, Qin Nan was different. He had refined his soul and will to the limit. He believed it was necessary to refine his flesh too. Who could possibly stand a chance against the three kinds of power? Burial of the Earth River. The walking stick in the old man's hand stabbed into the rift like an ancient immortal sword. It summoned a boundless river. Each drop of the river was refined into a wisp of sword intent looming over Qin Nan. Flesh, soul, and will, the three kinds of power were fully utilized. Even the east, south, west, and north stone statues emitted a blinding glow as if they were aware of how terrifying the attack was. When the other Empyreans saw this scene, their hearts were all shaken incessantly, receiving a considerable blow. "Senior, you're angry. Senior, you haven't come out for 4,000 years, but your cultivation has indeed reached an unimaginable level. If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to take that move head-on. This Lin Xiaoji is already heaven-defying to be able to withstand one of Senior's moves. It's just a pity that this kid is too ignorant and can only fall here." The Empyreans spoke one after another, their eyes flashing. The old man with the crutch was not a person who was easily enraged. He directly used such a terrifying move. Perhaps it was not only to kill Lin Xiaoji, but also to intimidate them. When Ming Ming saw this, he sighed, "Lin Xiaoji, you can't blame me." Qin Nan's figure suddenly turned into crystal. The will of the arts of Tao seeking soared into the sky like sabers behind him. His aura suddenly became incomparably terrifying, causing the four stone statues in the north, south, east, and west to vibrate. Heaven and earth slash. Qin Nan did not waste any time. He immediately slashed forward. The slash gathered the force of the heavens and earth, the origin force, and the will of the arts of Tao. Bang! The boundless earthen river sword intent began to crumble as if it had met its nemesis. It turned into countless light dots and scattered across the area within a few 10,000 li. The old man with the crutch took a few steps back, as if he received a great blow to the chest. "You?" The old man with the crutch opened his eyes wide in astonishment. Did the young man just nullify his powerful move just like that? What just happened? The expressions of the Empyreans froze as they were shocked beyond belief. Was it possible for a peak ruler to unleash such power? "Humph, I seriously don't know who gave you the confidence." Ji Xian was overjoyed upon seeing this. He blurted out, "Heaven Highness Earthen River, you're the strongest Heaven Highness in the old era. Brother Lin is the strongest Heaven Highness in the new era. Do you think you can defeat him? The strongest Heaven Highness in the new era." These words were like mountains that pressed down on their hearts. He has become a Heaven Highness? All the heavenly venerables were at a loss. During the previous Heaven Highness battle, Lin Xiaoji had failed to achieve the Heaven Highness realm in front of the crowd. How did Lin Xiaoji achieve the Heaven Highness realm? He might have achieved the Heaven Highness realm, but he's not undefeatable. The old man with the crutch was the first to react. He snapped, "Fellow cultivators, let's work together." Only then did these celestial venerables wake up from their dreams. Their bodies erupted with earth-shattering auras. "So what if you all come at me together?" Qin Nan displayed his imperious aura. He merged with the heavens and earth with a single step and vanished into thin air. Great turbulence of the heavens and earth. He had transformed into the ruler of the heavens and earth. His words were the law. Thousands of terrifying murderous intents burst out between the heavens and earth. Some of the intents even formed deadly traps that surrounded the crowd. After achieving the peak Heaven Highness realm and creating the first half of the Heaven Equal curse, Qin Nan's strength had already skyrocketed to a terrifying level. It was not an exaggeration to call him the strongest Heaven Highness. Crap! The old man with the crutch and the rest of the Heaven Highnesses were startled. They had no time to think further. They had no choice but to execute powerful forbidden arts under the strong sense of danger. Ancient Tao-seeking weapons began to glow in their bodies too. They soared into the sky with different auras. Bang bang bang! A series of explosions rang out one after another. The old man with the crutch and the rest of the Heaven Highnesses were completely suppressed in just a single blow. It was not surprising, as the new era was the era when the primary upper realm was born. It was the strongest era until Qin Nan's future. How could he possibly be the strongest Heaven Highness who had surpassed Song, Zhou Di Yi Zhaoxian, and Huang Fuju? How could they possibly stop him? Let's go. The old man with the crutch and the rest of the Heaven Highnesses thoroughly sensed how terrifying Qin Nan was. They realized the difference between them and Qin Nan. They immediately executed their moves, trying to escape from the heavens and earth. Do you think you can just leave as you please? Chapter 2456. Earth River Overturning the Heavens. The old man with the cane yelled and summoned 3 ancient rivers from the underworld, which surged forward. The rest of the Heaven Highnesses made their moves too. They executed their strongest moves and unleashed shocking intent. In an instant, the distorted space began to shatter and turn back into chaos. Even though the Heaven Highnesses did not have a tacit understanding with one another, nor did they trust one another, their eyes were sharp. As such, they consciously directed their moves in the same direction without communicating with one another. Only by gathering their strength together would they be able to clear a path out of the place. Maze of the heavens and earth. Qin Nan observed the situation. He executed his moves with a single thought. Countless heaven and earth runes suddenly spread out under the feet of the old man with the walking stick and the other celestial venerables, causing their eyelids to twitch. Just as they were about to cast their spells to destroy the runes, an invisible force rushed up and pulled their bodies. Xing appeared on the other side. The 10 people who were originally gathered together were now scattered to different corners of the world. Crap! The old man with a cane and the rest of the Heaven Highnesses exchanged glances with one another. They immediately executed their escape arts and regrouped with one another. However, Qin Nan had already prepared a backup plan. Saber flowers blossomed around them, emitting overwhelming saber intents. They were trapped in the place. Damn it! The old man with a cane wore an unpleasant look. If the 10 of them were to stick together, they might be able to fend off Qin Nan's attacks and leave the place. However, if they were to split up, they would not be able to break through the barrier and escape. Even though Qin Nan was struggling to gather his strength when fighting against the 10 of them, thus weakening the power of the traps, Qin Nan was the ruler of the heavens and earth. He had an endless supply of power. It was enough to wear them down one by one. They were like turtles in a jar. They were powerless against the situation. No way. I have to think of a way. There must be some hope. The old man with the walking stick forcefully suppressed the chill in his heart, as well as all kinds of chaotic emotions, and quickly began to think. Outside of this world, Emperor Long Ruo and Meng Lier were shocked as they stared blankly at the scene before them. The 2 of them didn't think that Qin Nan would possess such great power. He was practically invincible, suppressing the 10 Empyreans and putting them in danger. Big Brother Lin is indeed amazing. Meng Lier's heart was bursting with joy. At the same time, she recalled the figure that was usually filled with a mischievous smile. Where's that fellow? Why isn't he here yet? Emperor Long Ruo barely managed to regain his senses. He kept having an unreal feeling in his heart. Back at the Dao Plaza, Qin Nan had needed to borrow his strength to kill a ruler. But now, in just a few decades, Qin Nan had surpassed him by leaps and bounds. At the same time, in heaven and earth, the old man with the walking stick couldn't come up with a solution. He couldn't control his emotions and began to become anxious. Suddenly, he saw the 4 stone statues in the north, south, east, and west. Under the murderous intent that filled the sky, they glowed repeatedly, like divine needles that stabilized the sea, unmoving like mountains. That's right. These are the stone statues of the 4 supreme heavenly highnesses. Even though they won't attack cultivators, they won't allow anyone to harm them either. The old man with the walking stick immediately transmitted his voice to the other heaven highnesses. True dragons swimming in the ocean. A few moments later, the walking stick in the old man's hand shattered into pieces. It turned into rays of light encapsulating his figure. His aura and presence skyrocketed rapidly as he flew forward. It was as if he had transformed into a true dragon. He was swimming freely in the ocean, avoiding all kinds of danger. In addition to him, the other heaven highnesses executed their strongest escape arts too. What are they? Qin Nan immediately came to a realization when he saw the situation. However, it was too late when he realized what was going on. The old man with the walking stick and the others had gathered beside the stone statues in the north, south, east, and west. They forcibly resisted the terrifying auras of the supreme heavenly highnesses. Break! The old man with the walking stick and the others yelled and executed their moves to attack the stone statues. Qin Nan controlled the magnificent force of the heavens and earth to form various traps looming over them. However, before they could get any closer, the stone statues unleashed a terrifying force and shattered them into pieces. Bang bang bang! A while later, the old man with the walking stick and the others tore open a huge hole above the stone statues. Let's go! The old man with the walking stick and the others were overjoyed. They quickly regrouped and fled in the direction of the shocking ocean of flowers. Qin Nan withdrew from the heavens and earth and transformed into his human form. He looked at this scene and did not give chase. Brother Lin, why didn't you chase after them? Those guys were too full of themselves. Are you really going to let them go just like that? Ji Xian said with a displeased look. What else could I do? Qin Nan shrugged and said. Besides, the main culprit is here. There's no need for me to do anything. Ji Xian's eyes glittered. You're saying, meanwhile, the old man with the walking stick and the others let out relieved sighs when they realized that Qin Nan did not chase after them. That goddamned Lin Xiaoji, I didn't expect him to achieve the peak heaven highness realm. The old man with the walking stick cursed in his heart. He had to admit that he had underestimated Qin Nan. However, Lin Xiaoji, don't you think I can't do anything to you just because you've beaten me? Once I leave this place, I'll inform Tsang, Huang Fuju, and the others. I'd like to see if you can still stop them once they've lured them here. The old man with the walking stick wore a cold look. Since they were unable to take over the place, it was time to tell the authorities of the place what had happened. All of a sudden, he sensed a cultivator flying toward them from the front. Piss off! The old man with the walking stick yelled. Without hesitation, he was about to execute a powerful technique to crush the cultivator into pieces. The cultivator halted in his tracks upon hearing the words. You're asking me to piss off? The cultivator said calmly. His calm aura rose rapidly as if countless seals had been lifted. In less than a breath's time, it had reached a terrifying level. The 10 heaven highnesses were like children compared to an adult. Are you? The old man with the walking stick and the others were astounded when they sensed the familiar aura. They could not believe it. Chapter 2457. T-Heaven Rank Senior. The old man with the walking stick reacted. His voice trembled slightly as he clasped his hands and said, Senior, this junior had eyes but failed to see. I didn't know that it was Senior who came over just now. In a moment of desperation, this junior accidentally offended Senior. This junior has sinned. Senior, please punish me. Drops of cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and his complexion was somewhat pale. As the number 1 Empyrean of the previous era, even if Qin Nan was far stronger than him, it was also unable to subdue his heart and make him completely lower his head. However, the spirit of the Celestial Pole List was different. Not only was the spirit of the Celestial Pole List the number 1 person in the entire Great Upper Realm, back then, as an itinerant cultivator, For him to be able to ascend to the throne of the number 1 Empyrean, the spirit of the celestial pole list had given him a lot of help, like a teacher. Respect, reverence, they had long been deeply engraved into his soul. The other Empyrean powerhouses were also trembling. Empyrean Earth River was like this, but how could they not be like this? Don't know? I don't think so. The spirit of the celestial pole list sneered and said, "Didn't Lier tell you guys just now that her big brother Lin and Shuryen would come over? What a coincidence, I'm that Qin Shuryen." Qin Nan coughed. Now, as long as he heard the heaven rank leaderboard call himself Qin Shuryen, he would have that strange feeling in his heart. You're that, the old man with the walking stick said dryly. Right now, he was incomparably regretful in his heart. If he had known about this earlier, no matter how bold he would absolutely not dare to make a move against Menglier. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you guys. Everything here, even a flower or a blade of grass, is not allowed to be revealed. In addition, scram to the heaven rank leaderboard to receive your punishment. The spirit of the celestial pole list forcefully suppressed the urge to slap them and said coldly, "Why, yes, sir." The old man with the walking stick and the rest acted as if they had received amnesty. They nodded repeatedly and fled without a trace, no longer having any other thoughts. Junior Long Rua greets the heaven rank senior. When Empyrean Long Rua saw the spirit of the celestial pole list walking over, he recovered from his shock and hurriedly cupped his hands in greeting. The spirit of the celestial pole list nodded and looked at the golden rune altar. There was a trace of pain in its eyes, but there was also a trace of determination. "Shuryen? Are you here?" Mengli detected a familiar aura and her tone was filled with pleasant surprise. "Yes, it's me. I scared away all those bad guys just now." The spirit of the celestial pole list laughed. "Bah! All you know is how to brag. You think you're a sovereign? It's all thanks to Big Brother Lin." Menglier spat and said, "Shuryen, Big Brother Lin, I still need some time. Wait for me here." Not far away, Empyrean Longrua's eyes revealed a trace of confusion when he saw this. He seemed to have seen, Senior Longrua, you did not see wrongly. Ji Xian walked up and patted him on the shoulder. "When I saw it, I couldn't believe it either." Empyrean Longrua's heart trembled. "If this news were to spread, you'd better pretend that you didn't see anything. Otherwise, Brother Tian might make an exception and kill an Empyrean." Ji Xian said softly, causing a Peak Empyrean to tremble in fear. "Brother Tian, the situation isn't good?" Qin Nan walked forward and asked in a low voice. When the spirit of the celestial pole list appeared, he had already discovered that the spirit of the celestial pole list's mood was a little off. "The situation is indeed not good. It's much more serious than I imagined. Even if it's me, there are some things that I can't change." The smile on the spirit of the celestial pole list's face disappeared. It took a deep breath and said, "However, it's not like there's no way to save it. Naturally. In short, it's hard to explain in a few words. Come and see for yourself." With a flick of his finger, an ancient immortal light instantly engulfed Qin Nan. A scene immediately appeared in front of Qin Nan's eyes. It was as if he had become a third person. In the endless sky, he looked down at the spirit of the celestial pole list. He walked up an ancient staircase, step by step until he reached the end and arrived at an immortal palace. Inside, this immortal palace wasn't very big. There was only one floor in total, and it occupied an area of about 90,000 feet. Its entire body was made of some kind of green immortal jade. In this large expanse of darkness, it was suffused with a gentle green light. The spirit of the celestial pole list stopped in its tracks, not in a hurry to enter. Qin Nan could see countless symbols surging out from the spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes, as if it wanted to completely see through everything in this immortal palace. "Fellow Taoist of the celestial pole list, please enter." An old voice sounded from within the immortal palace. The tightly shut door opened by itself. The spirit of the celestial pole list seemed to have discovered something. The corners of its mouth curled up slightly, and it walked inside. Qin Nan also saw the scene inside the immortal palace. In the middle of the palace, there was an ancient incense burner, and smoke was rising in spirals from it. The smoke seemed to contain endless mysteries as it drifted to the surrounding walls. Immediately, all kinds of vivid and lifelike pictures appeared on the empty walls. At the end of the immortal palace, there was a futon, on which an old man was sitting. Qin Nan was immediately deeply attracted to the old man when he saw him. The old man's face was full of wrinkles, his eyebrows were white and his hair was white. He was wearing a green Taoist robe with several patches, and his eyes were turbid and dull. Logically speaking, what the celestial pole list showed him now was just the scene that the celestial pole list had seen before. Everything was dead and fixed, and there was no aura at all. However, the old man's sense of existence was extremely powerful, as if he could walk out of the scene at any time and anywhere. Moreover, Qin Nan could also sense that the aura emitted by the old man was far beyond his understanding and had reached an unimaginable level. This old man is probably the weapon spirit of the immortal divine tablet. He's much stronger than the seniors of the celestial pole list. Qin Nan thought to himself. He was not very surprised about this. The incomparably mysterious immortal divine tablet that came from the depths of the blue dome was definitely stronger than the celestial pole list. The old man waved his hand and summoned a futon. The spirit of the celestial pole list walked forward and sat down cross-legged. Without any nonsense, he went straight to the point. Who exactly is Li? What is her relationship with the immortal divine tablet? Can I let her stay in the great upper realm? The old man smiled and did not say anything. Instead, he took out a pot of tea and 2 teacups and filled the spirit of the celestial pole list. Fellow cultivator of the celestial pole list, it's a long story. Let me introduce myself first. My Taoist name is Old Man Zhuoxuan. You must have noticed that I'm one of the weapon spirits of the immortal divine tablet, Old Man Zhuoxuan said. Chapter 2458. Old Man Zhuoxuan continued. Back then, I was the only weapon spirit of the immortal divine steel, but something big happened and I fell into a deep sleep. After I fell asleep, the immortal divine steel gave birth to 2 weapon spirit. Later, one of them devoured one of them. An artifact spirit devoured another artifact spirit and fought against me. His name is Ancestor Yukong. The spirit of the celestial pole list smiled faintly. Taoist Zhuoxuan, it doesn't seem right to describe them as equals, does it? You're now outside the immortal divine steel, but forefather Yukong is in the depths of the steel. Old Man Zhuoxuan didn't mind. Judging from the current situation, Yukong does have the upper hand. However, he only had the upper hand. We've been fighting for thousands of years, and we've often taken turns to gain the upper hand. The spirit of the celestial pole list asked, What does this have to do with Li? Old Man Zhuoxuan picked up his teacup and took a sip. The Li you're talking about is a pair of eyes of the immortal emperor. Something major had happened earlier, causing it to break through the laws between the Blue Dome realm and the major upper realm, landing in the major upper realm. The spirit of the celestial pole list and Qin Nan frowned at the same time. Eyes of the immortal emperor? Li was a pair of divine eyes? What's the origin of the eyes of the immortal emperor? The spirit of the celestial pole list asked immediately. I'm sorry, fellow Taoist of the celestial pole list. Old Man Zhuoxuan shook his head. I'd like to tell you the answer, but you're not qualified to know it now. The spirit of the celestial pole list's face darkened. He could be considered the most powerful person in the primary upper realm, and was considered invincible here, but he wasn't even qualified to know? Old Man Zhuoxuan said faintly, Fellow Taoist of the celestial pole list, don't be angry. Although you can also be called a divine being, in a higher world, you are nothing. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. This sentence revealed a lot of information. If the level of the spirit of the celestial pole list was nothing in the mysterious world connected to the blue dome, then how terrifying would this mysterious world be? Fellow Taoist on the heavenly pole list, I will now answer your question. The eyes of the immortal emperors, which is Li-Er, are specially protected by the immortal divine steel. Old man Zhuxian said. Also, the eyes of the immortal emperors cannot exist in the primary upper world. Return to the Zhu immortal divine steel, and return to your original position. The spirit of the celestial pole list sneered and said, What if I insist on keeping her in the great upper realm? In that world of yours, I am indeed nothing. However, the blue dome was not very far from the major upper realm. If I insist on keeping her, your Zhu immortal divine steel, you won't be able to stop it. Old man Zhuxian nodded and said, That's right. If you are determined to die, you can indeed keep Li-Er. However, fellow Taoist on the celestial pole list, how long can you keep her here? The immortal emperor's pupils had already begun to awaken. If she did not return to the immortal divine steel, if she doesn't return to the immortal divine steel, she will fully awaken in less than 30 years. Do you know what that means? If she fully awakens in the primary upper realm, your primary upper realm will surely be destroyed. Old man Zhuxian's last words echoed in the palace like thunder. Qin Nan felt his soul shuddering. It felt like he was witnessing the end of the world. The origin force of the small immortal realms began to collapse first, as all kinds of calamities descended upon the world. The rules of the heavens and earth, the great Tao, following that, they all collapsed. This old man Zhuxian's cultivation is too terrifying. I almost fell into an illusion with a single sentence. Qin Nan suddenly came to his senses. He still had a lingering fear. However, I didn't expect Li-Er's background to be so terrifying. The senior on the heavenly pole list. Qin Nan straightened his face. The spirit of the celestial pole list's expression darkened. A terrifying aura burst out of his body, shaking the entire palace. In the void, the roars of countless gods and demons resounded. Old man Zhuxian remained calm. He continued to drink his tea. Some time later, the spirit of the celestial pole list's aura gradually calmed down. He said, If Li-Er turns into the eyes of the immortal emperors and returns to the celestial pole tablet, does that mean she will cease to exist? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. It was the most important question. That's right. Old man Zhuxian said calmly, She's only the manifestation of the eyes of the immortal emperors. Since she has returned to the celestial pole tablet, why would she still exist? The spirit of the celestial pole list stared at him. Of course, as the saying goes, man's will triumph over nature. Everything might seem impossible, but it's actually possible. There's no such thing as a foregone conclusion. However, your capabilities and your strength are still far from enough, said old man Zhuxian. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. Everything might seem impossible, but it's actually possible. This sentence was simply ear-splitting. I'm partly responsible for the eyes of the immortal emperors falling to the primary upper realm. If progenitor Yukong were to return the eyes of the immortal emperors, it would be considered his great achievement, which would put me at a great disadvantage. Old man Zhuxian said, The giant golden hand you saw was progenitor Yukong attacking you. Originally, he wanted to force Li-Er to return to her position by force. However, he didn't expect you and the young cultivator beside you to be so extraordinary. Quite extraordinary. Chapter 2459. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. Martial Emperor? What kind of cultivation was that? Had it surpassed the Supreme Highness realm? The spirit of the celestial pole list took a deep breath and said slowly, Tell me, how are we going to send Li-Er back to her rightful place? Give me a moment, Old Man Zhuoxuan rose to his feet and flicked his finger. He fired a ray of light into the rift. Around 100 breaths later, the entire immortal palace began to shake vigorously. An illusionary figure of an old man in a blue robe with white hair tied up in a bun slowly appeared with a terrifying aura. He seemed to be a lot stronger than Old Man Zhuoxuan. The man was the other weapon spirit of the immortal godly boulder, progenitor Yu Kong. Cultivator of the heaven-level leaderboard, Old Man Zhuoxuan is a ruthless man. Most of his words are lies. Cooperating with him is like asking a tiger for its skin. Progenitor Yukong said coldly. Cultivator Yukong, do you know if there's any way to make Li a human again after she's returned to her rightful place? The spirit of the celestial pole list asked. Progenitor Yukong fell silent for a moment before he said, I don't know. There's no such way in this world. Once the Emperor Eyes of the Heavens return to their rightful places, their spirits will be destroyed too. Old Man Zhuoxuan said with a calm smile, Yukong, you're saying it doesn't exist despite your ignorance? Progenitor Yukong harumphed and did not answer the question. He said, Cultivator of the heaven-level leaderboard, as long as you don't involve yourself in this, I can give you a great opportunity to learn the secrets of the martial emperors and control the entire primary upper realm. The spirit of the celestial pole list shook his head and said, Cultivator Yukong, I'm sorry, but I've made up my mind. Progenitor Yukong said with a hollow laugh, Cultivator of the heaven-level leaderboard, you better think twice. That old man is most likely lying to you. Don't leave empty-handed when the time comes. Old Man Zhuoxuan interrupted before he could finish. Yukong, the outcome has been decided. I didn't invite you here to quarrel. Ancestor Yukong raised an eyebrow and said, Zhuoxian, what do you want to do? Old Man Zhuoxuan smiled faintly and said, Fellow Taoists from the Celestial Pole Roll are escorting the immortal Emperor pupils back to their positions. If you make a move yourself, I'll stop you myself. Although you're stronger than me now, if I'm determined to stop you from being away for half a month, shall we? Old Man Zhuoxian continued, In that case, both you and I will suffer great losses. So, you draw the line. Let the fellow Taoists on the Celestial Pole Roll and the others try. If they make it through, let them escort Di Tong back to his position. Then, he made a move to stop them. If they fail, you will escort Di Tong back to his position. What do you think? Ancestor Yukong pondered for a moment and said, Your idea isn't bad. If that's the case, let them try the Emperor's tombs. Old Man Zhuoxian said with disdain, Taoist right Kong, are you serious? Not to mention fellow Taoists on the Heaven's Limit ranking, even an emperor wouldn't be able to pass through the tombs of emperors. If you're not sincere, then forget it. Let's see what we can do. Ancestor Yukong chuckled and said, Aren't I negotiating with you? If the Emperor's tombs don't work, then the 9 paths of true dragons. That should work, right? Old Man Zhuoxian frowned and pondered for a while before saying, If it's the 9 paths of true dragons, then it's fine. I haven't finished yet. Ancestor Yukong sneered and said, You can't tell them anything about the 9 paths of true dragons, and you can't help them at all. They have to rely on their own strength. Secondly, they have to find a supreme heavenly venerate. Helplessness. Also, they only have 10 days. I only have a few conditions. If you can't agree, then forget it. Old Man Zhuoxian's face darkened and said, 20 days. 15 days at most. The two were at a stalemate, staring at each other. After a long while, Old Man Zhuoxian sighed and said, Fine, 15 days it is. But let's make it clear first. If they make it through the 9 paths of true dragons, then I can take action and escort them back to their home, their place. Ancestor Yukong's face softened and he said, Of course. We can't delay the important matter. Otherwise, neither you nor I can bear the responsibility. Then, he glanced at the fellow Taoists on the Heaven Pole list and said, Fellow Taoist, please reconsider. The true dragon 9 paths is no joke. It's very likely that you'll die there. Then, He didn't say anything else and disappeared in a flash. Old Man's Xian looked at the spirit of the celestial pole list and said solemnly, "Fellow Taoist, Ancestor Yukong is right. The 9 paths of true dragons are very dangerous. Are you sure you want to try it?" The spirit of the celestial pole list said calmly, "Yes." Old Man's Xian nodded and said, "In that case, I won't say anything else. The immortal Emperor eyes are absorbing the innate monarch runes. Go and look for her. After she's done, I'll send my power down and let you enter the 9 paths of true dragons." "All right." The image then began to fade. Qin Nan let out a sigh of relief. "What do you think?" The spirit of the celestial pole list looked at Qin Nan. "I think we can definitely pass the 9 paths of true dragons," said Qin Nan. If the spirit of the celestial pole list didn't die in the 9 paths of true dragons, then they must have passed it. "Of course," the spirit of the celestial pole list said proudly. "If Old Man's Xian agreed, then we have a chance to pass the 9 paths of true dragons. As long as there's a chance, we can definitely pass it." Qin Nan frowned. If they could pass it, then Old Man's Xian would tell them the method. If that was the case, why did the spirit of the celestial pole list give a mission to find a golden-eyed girl in the 2,500 years? Why didn't the spirit of the celestial pole list find the golden-eyed girl directly and kill her? Was that golden-eyed girl Shaoli herself? The problem is most likely because of Old Man's Xian's method. Only by figuring out the method that Old Man's Xian mentioned can we know the answer. Qin Nan thought to himself. Also, Shaoji, there's a serious problem. The spirit of the celestial pole list looked at Meng Li who was refining the talisman with a solemn expression. What else? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat when he saw the expression on the spirit of the celestial pole list. This problem is very scary. I've been thinking for a long time, but I still can't think of a solution. The spirit of the celestial pole list took a deep breath and said with a solemn expression, "I promised Li that I won't lie to her. If I lie to her, I'll lie to her." Chapter 2460. True Dragon of Heaven and Earth. Time passed quickly, and 3 days passed quickly. Meng Li's absorption of the innate monarch runes was nearing the end. Her entire body had undergone a tremendous change, especially her eyes. Even though they were tightly shut, one could still feel a terrifying power from them. Qin Nan also told Ji Xian and Long Ruo about the general situation. Ji Xian didn't need to say much. When Long Ruo heard that he could help the spirit of the celestial pole list along with the spirit of the celestial pole list, he was quite excited. He didn't care if the true dragon 9 paths were dangerous or not. Finally, Meng Li finished refining. When the last innate monarch rune merged into her body, her entire body flickered with a dazzling divine light. Her temperament became incomparably noble, like a goddess from the 9 heavens. The spirit of the celestial pole list was dazzled. "Li, how is it? Are you all right?" The spirit of the celestial pole list quickly asked. "And these runes are very beneficial to me." Meng Li opened her eyes, and the entire world seemed to be illuminated by endless golden light, causing the hearts of Qin Nan and the others in the distance to skip a beat. Meng Li quickly formed an ancient seal, and the golden light released from her eyes was completely withdrawn. After obtaining the innate monarch rune, she could barely control her golden eyes. "Sure. Who are you?" Just as Meng Li saw everything in front of her, she saw an unfamiliar face close to her, giving her a fright. "Cough cough, Li, I'm Sure Yen." The spirit of the celestial pole list took a deep breath and made up her mind to die. She said solemnly, "The me you saw earlier was not the real me. This is me now. Actually, my identity is the celestial pole list, the spirit of the list." Meng Li was startled. After a long while, she reacted and said, "The celestial pole list that I'm on? The spirit of the celestial pole list's face was full of apprehension as it said, "Yes, it's that celestial pole list. I'm its tool spirit. Don't be angry. I didn't mean to hide it from you, but I was afraid of scaring you, so." Meng cracked a smile and said, "Put it down, why would I be angry? My Tao companion turned out to be the famous spirit of the celestial pole list. I couldn't be happier." The spirit of the celestial pole list was overjoyed. It's good that you're not angry. You scared me to death just now." Meng ignored him and looked at Qin Nan, smiling like a flower. "Big Brother Lin, you should be more familiar with the Holy Heaven Martial Sect, right? Would you please inform them that the spirit of the celestial pole list will be there in a few days to give a lecture using strange postures? Please inform everyone in the 9 heavens, immortal realm." The spirit of the celestial pole list's face turned pale as it said, "Can you change the punishment?" Ji Xian and Heavenly Highness Long Ra tried to hold back their laughter. Qin Nan tried his best to hold back his laughter too. He advised, "Just give him a chance. He really didn't mean to hide it from you." Meng let out a sigh and said, "Shuryen, I've long noticed that your background is unusual, and you've been hiding it from me. I've been wondering when you'll tell me the truth. Now that you're telling me the truth, I'm not angry. I'm actually happy. Therefore, I'll surely punish you. However, don't hide it from me anymore, okay?" The spirit of the celestial pole list became excited. "All right, don't worry." Meng said expressionlessly, "Of course, I can use this as an excuse. However, as soon as I became a ruler, my ranking on the celestial pole ranking suddenly soared to over 200, so I was surrounded by many experts." "You did it, didn't you? Regarding this matter, how should I account for it?" These words instantly poked Qin Nan's scar. Qin Nan immediately sneered, "The nature of this matter is very bad. We definitely can't tolerate it. We have to punish it properly." The spirit of the celestial pole list. At this moment, the sky above everyone's head suddenly turned dark. Old Man's Wuxian and ancestor Yukong walked out at the same time, bathed in divine light. It was as if 2 peerless emperors had arrived in the world. Although they didn't emit any aura, they gave off a great sense of oppression. "Greetings, Lord Ditong." Old Man's Wuxian and ancestor Yukong cupped their hands and bowed respectfully to Meng Li. Meng Li was shocked and subconsciously leaned behind the spirit of the celestial pole list. Don't be afraid." The spirit of the celestial pole list hugged her shoulder and whispered. Meng Li's heart instantly calmed down a lot. "Seniors, why do you call me Lord Ditong? Did you bring me here?" Ancestor Yukong brought his fists together and said, "Yes, Lord Ditong. I've sensed your presence, so I've asked you to return to your position." Old Man's Wuxian brought his fists together and said, "Lord Ditong, I know you have a lot of doubts. You'll know everything once the cultivators of the heaven-level leaderboard bring you back to your position." Meng Li's eyes flickered with confusion. "Return to my position? What do you mean?" Old Man's Wuxian said, "Return to where you came from. Cultivators of the heaven-level leaderboard, are you ready?" The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes sharpened as she said, "Let's begin." Old Man's Wuxian nodded. He reached out his skinny hand and grabbed at the crowd. The crowd immediately sensed a magnificent force descending upon them. It brought them across the rift. A few moments later, the force dissipated. The crowd arrived at an unfamiliar place. In front of them was a vast, pitch-black ocean with 9 paths floating on it. Each path was over 100,000 zhang wide. They were emitting different glows, illuminating the darkness below and the sky above. In addition to that, the crowd could clearly see that the 9 paths were made up of towering scales, emitting an ancient aura. A sudden gust of wind blew past. The crowd was stunned for a moment. Following it, the 9 paths seemed to have awakened. They transformed into 9 terrifying dragons that swam across the ocean. Roar! These 9 enormous dragons seemed to have discovered the existence of the crowd. Those incomparably huge dragon eyes all looked towards the crowd and suddenly opened their bloody mouths, letting out an earth-shattering roar. F***K Ji Xian's expression changed greatly. He subconsciously prepared to run for his life. Disperse! The spirit of the celestial pole list uttered coldly. The gust of wind stopped as the scene disappeared. Only the 9 paths remained on the surface of the ocean, as if nothing had happened. Don't tell me these are the paths refined by the 9 heaven-reaching dragons? No, they seem to be stronger, more ancient, and purer than the heaven-reaching dragons. Heaven Highness Long Rua mumbled to himself with a blank expression. He had spent his entire life dealing with various kinds of dragons. He had also cultivated various kinds of dragon arts, thus he was very familiar with dragons. Chapter 2461. What? Born as a Heaven Highness? Qin Nan and the others were astounded. If that was the case, didn't that mean they could achieve the Supreme Highness realm when they reached adulthood? If they were lucky enough to find a fortunate encounter during their growth, could they even surpass the Supreme Highness realm? How terrifying would this place be if such powerful 9 dragons of heavens and earth were used to refine the Tao of 9 dragons? Ji Xian took a deep breath. This place might be terrifying, but it's not a dangerous place. We can easily make our way through it with our strength. Cultivator Zhuo Xian, am I right? The spirit of the celestial pole list said calmly. Of course. Old man Zhuo Xian said with a smile. To be honest, this place isn't a dangerous place. It could even be considered a blessed place with great fortunate encounters. Ji Xian and the others immediately calmed down. Progenitor Yukong harumphed coldly upon seeing this. It depends on what you're capable of. The spirit of the celestial pole list glanced at Ji Xian and said, Kid, show me your master's capabilities and tell me which path is most suitable for us. Ji Xian's eyes glittered. Brother Tian, do you trust me? Of course. Ji Xian was so excited that he immediately took out pieces of tortoise shells and bamboo stick. He exerted all his strength and pushed everything he had learned to the limit. It was as if he had sunk into a mysterious world. His eyes were tightly shut and he was mumbling something. A moment later, he cut his right hand open and sprinkled a few drops of blood. A wisp of smoke with twisted runes floated in the air. A divination technique? Progenitor Yukong raised his eyebrows. The arrival of the crepe myrtle star, the arrival of the fortune of the heavens and earth. Ji Xian took a closer look and immediately said, Brother Tian, I've figured it out. These paths are filled with great danger. The 1st, 2nd, 4th, 8th, and 9th paths are relatively safer. They'll definitely be rewarded. Progenitor Yukong's eyes flickered with disdain. Old man Zhuo Xian's expression sank too. Very well. The spirit of the celestial pole list patted his shoulder and said, Ji Xian, you and Long Ruo will enter the 3rd path. Li'er and I entered the 5th path. As for Shao Ji, you will enter the 6th path. Ji Xian's face fell. This was the complete opposite of what he had expected. Clearly, they did not believe him. Kid, don't let your imagination run wild. It's not that I don't believe you. However, the 9 true dragon Daos before us were refined by the giants of another world. They do not belong to our great upper realm. Therefore, the fate and so on involved in them were completely different. It was different. With your current realm, you definitely won't be able to deduce the correct path. You can only do the opposite. The spirit of the celestial pole list glanced at Ancestor Right Kong and said, Fellow Taoist, am I right? Ancestor Yukong sneered and said, Don't even think about trying to trick me. Do whatever you want. The spirit of the celestial pole list cursed the old fox in her heart. Then, she flicked her finger and shot a beam of immortal light into Qin Nan, Ji Xian, and celestial venerable Long Ruo's body. She said, After we enter, we will most likely be in different small worlds. At that time, if we try to force ourselves, Don't force yourself if you encounter any danger. Activate this immortal light and it will be enough to save your life. Brother Tian, don't worry. Qin Nan and the others nodded. Then, they turned into rays of light and charged into the 9 true dragon Daos without any hesitation. In just a short while, their figures gradually disappeared. Yukong, you have lost by 30%, Old Man Zhuxian said with a smile. There won't be any danger if we choose the right path? Zhuxian, don't be happy too early. Ancestor Right Kong's face darkened. He waved his hand, and 3 water screens appeared above him to compare with Qin Nan and the others. Meanwhile, on the 6th true dragon Dao of heaven and earth, Qin Nan was moving forward at a shocking speed. The dragon aura pressing down on him was growing stronger too. It was like invisible immortal mountains stacking on top of each other. Body of origin. After a while, Qin Nan's body could no longer hold on. He had no choice but to activate the great Tongtian chant and turn his body into a crystal. The pressure was significantly reduced, but it did not dissipate completely. This place is indeed extraordinary, Qin Nan murmured. Time gradually passed. 5 hours later, Qin Nan finally arrived at the end of the 9 true dragon Dao. He saw a golden dragon gate floating in the air. Qin Nan observed it for a moment. He did not discover anything unusual. He stepped into it. A few moments later, Qin Nan found himself in a brand new world. 8 crescent moons hung upside down in the sky. Under the icy moonlight, the whole place was emitting a faint glow. In the distance, mountains rose and fell with dense forests. He could hear the roars of various mysterious beasts. This world is filled with different auras, intents, and even rules. It's completely different from the Blue Dome. Qin Nan took a closer look and immediately sensed a faint repelling force coming from the heavens and earth, as if he was the villain of the place, thus the heavens and earth were rejecting him. Primary force flesh, merging with the heavens and earth. Qin Nan immediately unleashed wisps of primary force, which penetrated the heavens and earth like countless tree roots. However, the repelling force suddenly multiplied. Qin Nan could hear a series of explosions in his ears. Qin Nan was startled. He immediately withdrew the primary force. The repelling force finally returned to its previous level, allowing Qin Nan to endure it. The Blue Dome doesn't belong to the primary upper realm, but I can still merge with the Blue Dome. Why can't I merge with the 9 true dragon Dao? Qin Nan murmured. What was the primary force? It was the origin of everything, the most primitive force. Normally, no matter which world the 9 true dragon Dao belonged to, he would still be able to merge with the heavens and earth. At most, he would feel unfamiliar with it, unlike when he was in the primary upper realm. That's strange. Could it be that there's a difference between the origin energies? Qin Nan thought for a long time, but he failed to come up with an answer. He could only shake his head and fly forward. His top priority was to find a way to get through the 9 true dragon Dao. Qin Nan did not fly very quickly. The primary force in his body constantly circulated, and his tremendous senses enveloped the surroundings. The 9 paths of the true dragon was an extremely terrifying forbidden ground. The killing intent hidden within it must have possessed an extremely terrifying power. However, Qin Nan did not encounter any danger even after flying for an entire hour. Besides that, Qin Nan discovered something strange. He could clearly hear the roars of many vicious beasts, but when he got closer, the mountain was completely barren. There was no sound at all. Palaces. Suddenly, several palaces appeared at the end of Qin Nan's vision. The palaces were dim and lightless. Their surfaces were covered in all sorts of marks, as if they had just barely survived through the flames of war. Chapter 2462. Reincarnation? Reincarnation? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He immediately pushed the door open and went inside. Meanwhile, outside the 9 paths of the true dragon, Old Man Zhuxian's face darkened upon seeing this. Ha ha ha, this kid is very curious. Progenitor Yukong could not help but burst out laughing. Little did he know that curiosity killed the cat. This kid's cultivation has yet to surpass the Supreme Highness realm after entering the sacred reincarnation palace. He will surely be reincarnated. Progenitor Yukong was in a great mood. He continued, among the cultivators on the heaven-level leaderboard, the eyes of the immortal emperor are unable to unleash their full power. Apart from the spirit of the celestial pole list, this kid is the strongest. His strength is comparable to the successors of the martial emperors. Now without him, TSK, do you think the spirit of the celestial pole list will be able to pass the trial alone? Old man Zhuan said expressionlessly, Cultivator Yukong, it's too early to celebrate. There might still be a chance. Even old man Zhuan did not believe his own word. With the cultivation of the guardian of the sacred reincarnation palace, there was no way Qin Nan could resist. Meanwhile, in the sacred reincarnation palace, Qin Nan had just entered the palace when the door he had opened closed with a bang. Qin Nan was startled. He quickly made his move to open the door again. However, for some reason, the door that had been very light before was now as heavy as a mountain. He could not move it no matter what force he used. Qin Nan frowned. He ignored the door and turned around to look at the palace. Faint blue candles were burning in the four corners of the palace. He could barely see the palace with the light of the candles. The walls were covered in scratches, as if they had been scratched by the sharp claws of some ferocious beast. A prismatic crystal was placed in the middle of the palace. At the end of the crystal was an ancient bronze throne with a silver-white skeleton sitting on it. Qin Nan's primary force surged into his eyes to strengthen his eye technique. He carefully observed the crystal and the skeleton. After discovering that nothing was amiss, Qin Nan thought to himself, from the outside, the Temple of Samsara has 3 levels. However, there were no stairs leading to the second floor from the first floor. It seems that the entrance has been blocked. Qin Nan immediately flicked his finger. Wisps of origin energy flew out from his fingertip like dragons and swam around the hall, not missing a single inch. At that instant, a great chill exploded in Qin Nan's heart. Origin Fist. Without any hesitation, Qin Nan pushed his body of origin to the extreme, turned around and punched forward. Boom! With a loud bang, Qin Nan felt as if he had hit a boundless sea, unable to move it at all. He raised his head and saw that the skeleton had caught his punch with its right hand. Qin Nan's hair stood on end. As he was about to execute his killing blow, several rays of godly glow were emitted from the skeleton's figure, resulting in a tremendous pressure crushing onto Qin Nan's figure. Crap! Qin Nan could only feel his body being suppressed by a great force. He could not move at all. Life is endless, death is endless. The birth of all living things, the reincarnation of all living things. 2 green godly flames burst out from the skeleton's hollow eye sockets as it uttered a hoarse voice. A 3-colored lotus appeared on its other hand as it swung it at Qin Nan's chest. Everything happened so quickly that Qin Nan could not react in time. He could only see the bone palm hitting his chest. What's that? Qin Nan was startled. He saw the 3-colored lotus exploding into pieces as soon as it made contact with his body. It did not hurt him in the slightest. Ugh! Qin Nan was startled. The skeleton's hand stiffened. The 2 green godly flames in its eye sockets suddenly stopped moving. Qin Nan quickly collected his thoughts. He immediately executed the sky-stride blow and arrived before the door within an instant. Break! Qin Nan fully unleashed his strength. Several arts of Tao seeking were unleashed in his body. His will turned into a saber in his hand. He slashed forward with a strong saber intent. Bang! The entire palace trembled slightly, and a deep saber mark was left on the door. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. He was about to make his move when the skeleton said, "Young cultivator, there's no need to waste your energy. Without my permission, Even a supreme heavenly venerate wouldn't be able to open this door. Several thoughts crossed Qin Nan's mind. He said, Senior, how can I get out of here? Don't worry, I won't harm you again. I'll let you out soon, the skeleton said. Qin Nan was startled. The skeleton added, I'll forcibly reincarnate the cultivators who come here. It's my responsibility to. However, since you've been reincarnated in my sacred reincarnation palace, I won't let you. I'll send you into reincarnation again. Speaking of which, you're quite curious too. You were reincarnated here in your past life, yet you still came here after achieving the Heaven Highness realm. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He had solved many of his doubts after coming so far. Among the few doubts he had, one of them was why Huang Fuju and Zhou Di were reincarnated in his body at the same time. Who was the one setting the other up? How did they do it? Judging from the skeleton's words, Zhou Di or Huang Fuju were reincarnated in his body through the sacred reincarnation palace. Senior, I have a question that I hope you can answer. Qin Nan brought his fists together and said, Go ahead. Senior, if two people reincarnate in the same body at the same time, how do you tell who came first and who came second? Qin Nan asked. The skeleton's green flames flickered as it looked at Qin Nan. It's almost impossible for two people to reincarnate in the same body at the same time, unless… What? Qin Nan asked when he saw that the skeleton did not respond. The skeleton was confused. You're a Heaven Highness after all. Are your ears not working well? I've already told you, why are you still asking? Forget it, you don't meet the requirements of reincarnation. You should leave now. The skeleton ignored Qin Nan. It turned around and returned to the ancient throne. The place fell silent again. The tightly shut door slowly opened. Qin Nan's lips twisted. The skeleton had already said it, but he did not hear anything. It only proved that the skeleton was hindered by the space-time force when it said the answer. The space-time force believed that if he knew the answer, it would change the pattern of history. Thank you, Senior. Chapter 2463. Meanwhile, outside the 9 paths of the True Dragon, Progenitor Yukong suddenly noticed something. He was astounded. That kid is out? Old man Zhuan was startled. Who's out? He's out? He was startled when he saw Qin Nan walking out from the sacred reincarnation palace. TSK, I didn't expect the young man beside a fellow cultivator on the heaven pole ranking to be even more extraordinary than I thought, Old man Zhuan exclaimed. Old man Zhuan praised in his heart. He glanced at Ancestor Right Kong and said, Cultivator Right Kong, what did you say just now? Progenitor Yukong said with a twisted expression. He does have some tricks up his sleeves. Old man Zhuan stroked his beard with a smile. He shifted his gaze to the water curtain in the middle. He was astounded when he saw the spirit of the celestial pole list performing a series of mystical hand seals. The heaven pole ranking. Progenitor Yukong noticed something too. He was immediately attracted to it. The land where the heavenly fate rolls spirit and Meng Li were at was an ancient battlefield. Inside, the sounds of battle shook the heavens. There were all kinds of strange creatures and ancient fiend god. They were all recklessly clashing together and displaying their various abilities. They were all using powerful martial arts. Although they seemed as though they didn't see the heavens' fate roll spirit and Meng Li and didn't make a move against them from the start till the end, but the various repercussions of the terrifying battle still swept them into it. The spirit of the celestial pole list executed a peerless art. It summoned the illusionary figure of an ancient immortal palace to block the aftermath of the battle. At the same time, his eyes were like stars as he coldly stared ahead. More and more seals were being formed in his hands. He was making more hand seals. Finally, he finished the last hand seal. Heavenly Tao Spirit Capture. The spirit of the celestial pole leaderboard roared. Bright white light blossomed between its hands. Numerous illusory figures with human bodies and snake waists held three-pointed ancient halberds and rapidly rushed into the world ahead. A strange scene occurred. These illusory figures with human bodies and serpentine waists shuttled through the shockwaves of the various abilities. They even passed through the ancient gods and devils without any obstruction. They soon disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? After around 30 breaths, the sky above the battlefield suddenly turned dark. Countless thunderbolts were rolling within it. A great imperious aura descended from the mysterious depths, causing countless living beings to shiver. "Who dares to harass me?" An angry voice erupted from the clouds. It was as if an ancient god had awoken from its slumber. "You are the spirit of this battlefield, right?" The spirit of the celestial pole list was unmoved. It looked up at the sky and said calmly, "Tell me, how do I pass the 9 paths of true dragons? You want to know? I'll tell you after I kill the 2 of you and refine you into my servants." The spirit of the battlefield unleashed a shocking murderous intent. A thunderous hand immediately stretched out from the sky, carrying with it the boundless might of the entire battlefield as it viciously grabbed at the heavens' rank spirit. Outside the 9 paths of true dragons, Progenitor Yukong exclaimed upon seeing this, "Cultivator of the celestial pole ranking is more impressive than I thought. He managed to capture the spirit of the battlefield." Old Man Zhuan said with a smile, "Of course." Progenitor Yukong chuckled. "Unfortunately, he has overestimated himself. The spirit of the battlefield is comparable to a supreme highness. He's simply asking for his death by awakening the spirit of the battlefield." Before he could finish his words, his pupils shrank sharply. At that critical moment, the spirit of the celestial pole ranking flicked its finger. A dazzling sword light, with an unstoppable force, directly shattered the lightning hand into pieces. It turned into countless lightning bolts that rained down on the ground. "Get down here." The spirit of the celestial pole roll made a grabbing motion with its hand and erupted with boundless power. It forcibly tore a huge hole in the dark clouds and grabbed the human-shaped 9-colored light that was hidden in the depths of the clouds and brought it before him. How is this possible?" The human-shaped 9-colored light, who was also the spirit of the battlefield, was astounded and in disbelief. It possessed a combat strength comparable to a supreme heavenly venerate, yet the celestial list spirit before him gave off the feeling that it was only a peak heavenly venerate. "Why not?" The spirit of the celestial pole list said disdainfully, "You're only the spirit of the battlefield. Do you think I can't subdue you? Cut the crap, I'll give you a chance. Answer my question. Otherwise, I'll destroy you." He flicked his finger. A sword glow landed in front of the human-shaped 9-colored light's throat. It remained still like a godly dragon staring at its prey coldly. The human-shaped 9-colored light trembled violently. After a few breaths, it said dejectedly, "Fine, I'll tell you." Outside the 9 paths of the true dragon, Ancestor Yukong was stunned. "How did he do that?" Old Man Zhuan smiled and said, "Yukong, you're underestimating him too much. After all, he's the spirit of one of the 2 connate ultimate treasures in the primary upper realm. Moreover, his aptitude in all aspects is extremely terrifying. If we let him go to our world, he'll definitely become the Heaven Overlord. He'll be able to make the celestial pole list an overlord of a generation and suppress eternity." Ancestor Yukong's expression changed. "I did underestimate him. However, it's not enough to break out of the 9 paths of the true dragon by himself. The other 2 sides simply don't know how to charge out." At this moment, after the spirit of the battlefield honestly gave the answer, the spirit of the celestial pole leaderboard immediately formed a seal and said, "Shao Ji Ji Xian Long Ru. If you want to break out of the 9 paths of the true dragon, you need to gather at least 3 true dragon talismans. Where you are now, there are true dragon talismans everywhere." Every word it said condensed into a golden substance and entered the world. It passed into the ears of Qin Nan and the other two in an unbelievable state. Xiao Ji, your true dragon talisman is in the ancient shrine in the east. Ji Xian and Long Ruo, your true dragon talisman is in the sun in the west. I'll leave these two true dragon talismans to you. You must get them. After you get them, use the immortal light in your bodies. After that, the spirit of the celestial pole list grabbed Meng Li Er's fair hand and crossed the void to the end of the battlefield. It waved its hand and sent down a great power to take one of the true dragon talismans into its hand. Ancestor Yukong's face immediately turned livid. The spirit of the celestial pole list broke the rules again. Chapter 2464. Meanwhile, outside the sacred reincarnation palace, Qin Nan lifted his gaze and saw golden words floating in the air. They turned into the voice of the spirit of the celestial pole list echoing between the heavens and earth. Brother Tian has such an eerie trick, Qin Nan murmured. There was no way he could do it. The ancient shrine of the east? Qin Nan's eyes flickered after hearing the words of the spirit of the celestial pole list. He immediately flew toward the east at a shocking pace. The whole place was still filled with the roars of various beasts, but when Qin Nan went closer, he could not see anything. Don't tell me the sacred reincarnation palace has forced the living beings of this place to reincarnate? A sudden thought popped up in Qin Nan's mind, causing him to break out in cold sweat. The sacred reincarnation palace was extremely cruel. If he was not the reincarnation of Zhou Di and Huang Fuju, he would have died too. I should be more careful. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. Time gradually passed. Around 5 hours later, a magnificent mountain towering into the clouds appeared in Qin Nan's vision. At the peak of the mountain, an ancient celestial palace floated. Under the illumination of the 8 crescent moons in the sky, it appeared incomparably sacred. It was as if a group of deities lived inside, causing people to be intimidated and not dare to offend them. This ancient shrine is nothing ordinary, Qin Nan murmured after observing it for a while. He walked into the temple of Samsara easily. Apart from the word Samsara, the most important thing was that the entire temple of Samsara looked very ordinary. He didn't see anything special. However, the ancient shrine was different. Its power was not concealed. When a cultivator looked at it with their eye technique, they could see that it had merged perfectly with the heavens and earth. On top of that, a terrifying aura was surging deep inside it. It was about to unleash its power at any time. Flesh of origin. Qin Nan's body turned into a crystal, releasing strands of immortal light as he directly walked over. When he was 100 zhang away from the palace, the tightly shut door opened on its own, emitting a magnificent ancient intent. Qin Nan flicked his finger and sent the saber light into the hall. After discovering that there was no reaction, he stepped into the hall. The entire hall was hundreds of thousands of meters wide. Golden flames burned on the walls, illuminating the entire hall. One could see at a glance that there were 99 statues placed in the hall. Every statue was a different cultivator. They were vivid and lifelike. Although there was not the slightest bit of life in them, their temperaments were still there. Some were overbearing, some were cold and emotionless, and some were calm and collected. These statues all seemed to be of young people. Qin Nan glanced around but didn't see any middle-aged man or old man. Suddenly, a gloomy voice rang out from the depths of the main hall. Aboriginal, this ancient shrine is not a place you should be. Seeing that you've had a hard time cultivating, I'll spare your life if you scram right now. A weapon spirit? A thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. He said with a calm smile, Senior, I can leave, but please give me the true dragon talisman. The weapon spirit of the ancient shrine burst out laughing. You still want the true dragon talisman? Aren't you afraid that I'll slap you to death? You're just a mere Empyrean, so killing you is as easy as flipping my hand. I'm not afraid, Qin Nan said without hesitation. I can even come and go as I please in the sacred reincarnation palace. Why would I be afraid of the ancient shrine? Deep inside the ancient shrine, the weapon spirit's hand shuddered. If it was anyone else, it would have attacked long ago, but it had witnessed Qin Nan entering the sacred reincarnation palace and coming out not long after. That was the sacred reincarnation palace. If the dragon's soul hadn't protected it, it would have been reincarnated too. It's useful. Qin Nan saw that it was silent for a few breaths and knew that it was shocked. He immediately said, "Senior, why don't you do me a favor and give me the true dragon talisman?" The weapon spirit of the ancient shrine twitched its mouth and said, "Well, I think you're not bad. I'll do you a favor. However, I can't give you the true dragon talisman directly. According to the rules of the ancient shrine, you have to defeat a statue to take it. Get it?" Qin Nan raised his eyebrows and heard the weapon spirit of the ancient shrine say, "Don't worry, the cultivation of this statue is suppressed to the same level as yours. Of course, the statues here are all peerless geniuses, invincible in the same level. Also, you can only use your own strength when you fight. You can't use other objects. If you can't defeat it, then I can't help you." In the weapon spirit of the ancient shrine, Qin Nan must have something terrifying on him to be able to come out of the sacred reincarnation palace. Therefore, it had a brainwave and quickly added this rule. "I'll let it out later," the weapon spirit of the ancient shrine thought. It still didn't want to hand over the true dragon talisman. Invincible in the same level? I can't use other objects? Qin Nan curled his lips and said, "Senior, I understand. Bring it on." The ancient shrine's artifact spirit didn't say anything. With a thought, a statue wearing a white robe and a golden dragon crown on its head started to emit cracking sounds. Its silent heart started to beat violently, and a violent aura surged out from its body. It surged out, causing the entire hall to tremble slightly. "Well, it's not bad." Qin Nan nodded secretly. The battle blood in his body was also restless. Although this place restrained his battle strength, he hadn't met a decent opponent since he reached the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. Someone else is here? That's good. I, Yen Danqing, haven't crippled someone in a long time. I really miss the feeling of crippling others. The statue was completely awakened and sighed. It was just a few words, but it was filled with a shocking murderous aura. Yen Danqing was obviously a very ferocious existence when he was alive. "Let me see who's so unlucky to run into me." Yen Danqing turned his head and looked at Qin Nan. The moment he saw Qin Nan, his pupils shrank sharply. "Why are you here?" Yen Danqing's eyes were filled with shock as he cried out involuntarily, "Well, do you know me?" Qin Nan was confused. He had never seen this person in front of him before. "Why is your cultivation still at the peak of the heavenly venerable realm?" "That's right, I remember now. Master once said." Yen Danqing suddenly thought of something and completely understood. His eyes were filled with complicated feelings. "Fellow cultivator, you have passed this round," Yen Danqing said in a deep voice. "I'm not your opponent, so I won't waste your time. I hope you remember what happened today and don't be so heavy-handed when the time comes." After saying this, Yen Danqing turned back into a statue and remained silent. Qin Nan was completely confused. What's going on? He wasn't the only one. The ancient shrine's artifact spirit was also confused. Yen Danqing was the most ferocious person. How could he admit defeat just like that? Isn't this young man a native of that world? How does Yen Danqing know him? And he seems a little scared? "Yen Danqing, according to the rules, you have to fight." The ancient shrine's artifact spirit reacted and said hurriedly. "All right then," Yen Danqing said in a low, muffled voice and threw a punch at Qin Nan. Qin Nan threw a punch almost subconsciously. Bang! Chapter 2465. When Qin Nan received the true dragon talisman and walked out of the immortal palace, he was still in a daze. He really couldn't remember where he had met someone called Yan Danqing. Besides, the weapon spirit of the immortal palace had called him a native. This Yan Danqing was most likely from another world. It was even more unlikely that he had met him before. If that was the case, how did Yan Danqing know him? Besides, why did Yan Danqing ask him not to use too much strength? Could it be that I'll meet Yan Danqing somewhere in the future and beat him up? But that's in the future. How did Yan Danqing know about it in advance? Could it be that he's the same as me? Did he travel back to the past? Upon having this thought, Qin Nan felt that it was quite possible. It sounded like a fantasy story, but didn't he return to the ancient era from the future? However, Qin Nan was still unsure. He had a feeling that there might be another possibility. Forget it, I'm not going to think about it. Qin Nan shook his head. He immediately transmitted his thought to the immortal glow in his body. Xiaoji, just wait. Ji Xian isn't doing his best. He hasn't settled it yet. The spirit of the celestial pole list transmitted its voice. Qin Nan sat down with his legs crossed and unleashed his strong senses to sense the uniqueness of the place. Around 16 hours later, the true dragon talisman that Qin Nan had obtained suddenly became scorching hot. Every rune on it began to emit wisps of immortal glow. In the end, only a dragon's roar was heard. The true dragon talisman released an incomparably enormous power, taking him away from the spot. 100 breaths later, Qin Nan landed in a different place as his body turned light. The spirit of the celestial pole list and Menglier Ji Xian, Heavenly Highness Long Ra, progenitor Yukong, and Old Man Zhuoxuan had all arrived. The spirit of the celestial pole list is indeed the weapon spirit of a natural artifact. You've passed the 9 paths of the true dragon so quickly. Congratulations! Old Man Zhuoxuan congratulated him. You are indeed very good. You have far exceeded my expectations. This time, it's my loss to Zhuoxian. Old ancestor Yukong looked at the spirit of the celestial pole list. His mood had already calmed down, and he said, "Are you interested in assisting me? Defeat this old thing? At that time, I'll definitely give you a heaven-shaking fortune." Old Man Zhuoxian said with a smile, "Taoist right Kong, isn't it inappropriate for you to say this in front of me? If they really want to help, they should be helping me. In addition, fellow Taoist on the celestial pole roll, as a connate treasure of the great upper realm, you can't interfere with the immortal divine steel. Otherwise, you'll be seriously injured." The spirit of the celestial pole list shrugged and said, "Indeed. However, if there are enough benefits, maybe I will take the risk and come here." Old Man Zhuoxian and old ancestor Yukong's eyes turned cold. "There's no time to lose. Let's send Di Tong back now," Old Man Zhuoxian said. He performed a hand seal and sent it into the void ahead. A pitch-black entrance slowly appeared, and a strange aura flowed out from it. Old Man Zhuoxian and old ancestor Yukong took the lead and entered. The spirit of the celestial pole list, Qin Nan, and the others immediately followed. After entering the entrance, they saw a straight, pitch-black passage ahead. There was no end in sight. A faint singing voice came from all directions. Qin Nan and the others couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. A chill ran down his spine, and he felt a sense of danger. What is this path? Why do I feel a great sense of danger from a song? Ji Xian couldn't help but ask. This path is called the Path of Serene Passage. It's a mysterious ancient path that can lead us to the deepest part of the immortal godly boulder. Only Old Man Zhuoxian and I can execute it, Old Ancestor Yukong said calmly. If the immortal godly boulder is divided into the upper and lower levels, Old Man Zhuoxian and I can only control the upper level of the immortal godly boulder. The middle and lower levels are too dangerous. They involve too many secrets. We can learn the secrets, but we can't enter them recklessly. Otherwise, even we are at risk of dying. Therefore, Don't go too deep into the immortal godly boulder in the future. Qin Nan and the others were startled. The eyes of the spirit of the celestial pole list flickered. Normally, a weapon spirit could control an entire artifact. Similar to the spirit of the celestial pole list, it could control the power of the celestial pole list at will. It was already very special that two weapon spirits had appeared on the immortal godly boulder. They didn't expect the immortal godly boulder to have such secrets. Speaking of which, this is somewhat similar to the undying cycle mountain. Although Senior Zhou Xuandao is a mountain spirit, he can't unleash the power of the entire mountain. He can't achieve the same level as the spirit of the celestial pole list. Qin Nan thought to himself. In fact, Qin Nan was wrong about this. Most weapon spirits couldn't control the artifact itself. They needed a cultivator to activate the artifact. Only then could the weapon spirit take advantage of the situation and unleash its full power. It could be said that the spirit of the heavenly pole roll was unique in the great upper realm. Young friend, I haven't asked for your name before. Old man Zhuxian suddenly turned around and looked at Qin Nan. Senior, my name is Qin Nan. Qin Nan immediately cupped his hands and answered. So it's young friend Qin Nan. Old man Zhuxian stroked his beard and said with a smile, Young friend Qin Nan, you're not simple at all. Even Yan Danqing is intimidated by you. He doesn't dare to fight you. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He did not say anything. Old man Zhuxian continued. I wonder if young friend Qin Nan is interested in becoming a successor of the immortals? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat upon hearing this. Senior? What's a successor of the immortals? Qin Nan was confused. The successor of the immortals is one of my plans. I'll need around 8 to 10 of them. I can't tell you why I'm doing this for now. However, I can tell you that once you become a successor of the immortals, you'll be able to obtain the Empress. You'll get a lot of benefits from this method, said old man Zhuxian. Senior, can we become the successor of the immortals too? Ji Xian's eyes glittered. Heaven Highness Long Rual was intrigued too. You have a chance, but it's up to you whether you can succeed or not, old man Zhuxian said. Humph. Progenitor Yukong said disdainfully, Young friend Qin Nan, don't listen to this old man. It's hard to say who's the only weapon spirit of the immortals' divine boulder. If I become the weapon spirit, I won't carry out any of your plans to become the successor of the immortals. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. Chapter 2466. I'm sorry, fans, the name Qin Nan told old man Zhuxian was most likely Lin Xiaoji. He was in too much of a rush, so he didn't have time to check it. I can't change it now, so I can only apologize. Please don't scold me too much. Just don't hit my face. However, the outcome was not too surprising. Old man Zhuxian was the only weapon spirit of the immortal godly boulder. His capabilities were not something progenitor Yukong could compare to. Unfortunately, old man Zhuxian is too tight-lipped. Otherwise, I would know why he's trying to get the 10 immortals. Qin Nan thought. As a matter of fact, he could accept old man Zhuxian's offer to become the successor of the immortals. After all, once the time came, the rules of space and time would descend upon him. He would have to return to his past life, and old man Zhuxian would not be able to do anything about it. However, old man Zhuxian's strength was unfathomable. Qin Nan did not dare to try it. Half an hour later, Qin Nan and the others saw a ray of light in front of them. A magical aura was emitted from the mysterious place, causing them to feel refreshed, as if their minds were refreshed. We're almost there, Progenitor Yukong said and glanced at Meng Li'er. Meng Li'er's delicate body trembled slightly as the golden light in her eyes flickered continuously. In her heart, an inexplicable yearning rose, causing her to impatiently rush out of the exit. At the same time, her heart was filled with a hint of fear and resistance. Li'er, don't be afraid. The spirit of the celestial pole list held her hand and transmitted its voice. Once the eyes of the immortal emperors are back, I'll save you and turn you into a human. You will no longer be disturbed by the eyes of the immortal emperors. Mengli calmed her thoughts and said, What if I? The spirit of the celestial pole list shook its head and said, There's no what if. You'll be able to free yourself from the eyes of the immortal emperors. If it doesn't work, I'll just come here and reactivate the eyes of the immortal emperors. Every word and sentence was filled with a great domineering aura and confidence. He was the only person in the primary upper realm that had a chance of venturing into the eyes of the immortal emperors. Furthermore, you promised me earlier that you would bear my child. The spirit of the celestial pole list changed the topic and chuckled. Who wants to give birth to your child? Mengli-er's face turned red as she pinched his arm. You're really so hateful. Why are you bringing this up now? After being disturbed by the spirit of the celestial pole list, Mengli-er's state of mind calmed down as she followed the crowd and walked towards that white light. Finally, everyone stepped out of the white light. They could only see a blessed land in front of them. The sky was blue, with the sun and moon hanging high in the sky. The stars were shining brightly. Ancient mountains were soaring into the clouds. All kinds of strange flowers and herbs were growing. Unknown beasts were roaming everywhere. The entire scene was filled with vitality and peace. Ji Xian was a little stunned. In his original imagination, this place would definitely be incomparably terrifying, filled with gods and demons, and killing intent everywhere. In the end, he didn't expect it to be so peaceful and ordinary. Lear, right? Do you see it? There's a temple there. You can enter it. Old man Zhuxian pointed in a direction and said. Everyone raised their heads and looked over, only to see a lake in front of them. Spiritual mist drifted over the lake, and a 3-story tall golden ancient temple was faintly discernible within the lake. Lear, I'll go with you. The spirit of the celestial pole list grabbed Mengli-er's hand and proceeded forward. Wait! Progenitor Yukong yelled with a startled expression. We can only let her go. We can't set foot in this place. Otherwise, we'll all be in danger. Ji Xian could not help but ask, Senior, is this place really dangerous? I've just deduced that if we continue forward, we'll find great benefits. He felt like Progenitor Yukong was trying to scare them. Kid, do you really think your deduction is enough to deduce the secrets of this sacred place? Progenitor Yukong let out a hollow laugh and said, This sacred place is indeed a peerless blessed land, but it depends on who it's for. To us, this place is a dead end. A land of death. Whether it's a flower, a blade of grass, or even a pebble, they all contain the power to destroy the heavens. Even the dust less than an inch in front of you is enough to kill a supreme heavenly venerate. Old man Zhuxian said in a deep voice, Yukong is right. Everyone, please don't move. Ji Xian immediately cursed as his expression changed drastically. Qin Nan and Heavenly Venerate Long Ruo were astounded too. Indeed, they did not expect that the so-called sacred ground would be so terrifying. An inch of dust was enough to kill a supreme heavenly venerate. What about a foot, 100 feet, or even 1,000 feet of dust? What about the strange flowers, strange herbs, towering trees, and ancient immortal mountains? What kind of terrifying forbidding auras would they possess? The heaven-rank spirit's expression changed. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Mengli smiling at him. Her smile was like a flower. Shurian, you can just stand here. I'll go over by myself. You don't have to worry. As she spoke, she shook off the hand of the spirit of the celestial pole list and walked resolutely to the temple in front of her without looking back. When she walked a foot forward, a dazzling golden light burst out from her body and soared into the sky. Everything in the sacred ground seemed to be alarmed. Various kinds of light bloomed one after another from the dust, flowers, trees, mountains, demonic beasts, and so on. all kinds of sounds of great Tao intertwined into a tune that echoed between the heavens and earth. Qin Nan and the others, and even the spirit of the celestial pole list were stunned, as if a peerless emperor was about to return to his throne. The spirit of the celestial pole list suddenly came to a realization. It looked at old man Zhuxian with a sharp gaze and asked, "Senior, can you tell me the solution now? Cultivator of the celestial pole ranking, please calm down. The monarch eyes have yet to return." Old man Zhuxian said with a smile, "Besides, as soon as the monarch eyes return, the sacred place will be activated and produce a sacred rare phenomenon. This is an incomparably rare opportunity. You must not miss it." Saying this, he sat down with his legs crossed and looked ahead. On the other side, progenitor Yukong had already sat down with his legs crossed and held his breath. Chapter 2467. Mengli continued to move forward. Every 10 feet she advanced, the golden glow emitting from her body would grow brighter. Illusionary figures of the heavens and earth true dragons appeared above her. Unlike the true dragons of the 9 paths of true dragons, the true dragons of the true dragons were golden in color. Their auras were even more sacred and noble. The dragons danced in the air, resulting in a variety of rare phenomena. Not knowing how long had passed, Mengli finally walked to the surface of the lake. Stepping on the water, her figure slowly disappeared into the misty spiritual mist as she entered that mysterious temple. At that instant she felt like she was on a mission. She was born to be here. She had to exist here. She did not belong anywhere else. Gradually, everything in her heart disappeared. Everything she had experienced in the primary upper realm also began to fade into nothingness. She had been a slave at a young age, met her grandfather, Brother Lin, encountered many enemies, and met many good people. "My words," she murmured. In the end, her figure began to break into pieces, turning into wisps of golden dragon chi that entered her eyes. At that instant, Qin Nan and the others saw a mysterious, illusionary bell appearing above the sacred ground. It chimed on its own, producing a series of chimes. Each chime seemed to contain the power of the great Tao and the truth of the heavens and earth, echoing throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Qin Nan and the others were astounded. They could only feel a great mystery surging at them. The chimes were similar to the chimes they had heard when they achieved the Heaven Highness realm. However, they had never seen such a bell before. Could it be the legendary bell of Tao? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, the trees, flowers, mountains, rivers, the sky, and everything else in the sacred ground seemed to have been awakened by the bell. They turned into magnificent figures sitting around the bell and looking at the temple by the lake, where the universe was. The figures consisted of gods, demons, Buddhas, immortals, shamans, etc. Their auras were overwhelming, reaching a level that Qin Nan and the others could not imagine. The monarch eye has returned, all arts have returned to their origin. There is no such thing as a miraculous birth, and the Tao is empty for 10,000 years. All the figures spoke at the same time as if they were explaining the Tao of the heavens and earth. As each word fell, rings of Tao rhyme, visible to the naked eye, swept out in all directions. Qin Nan and the others immediately immersed themselves in the Tao aura. They felt like they had a clearer understanding of the martial arts they were practicing and the rules of the heavens and earth, allowing them to understand many things that they had never understood before, especially Empyrean Long Ruo and Ji Xian. Within this group of people, the 2 of them had the weakest battle power. Therefore, their gains were directly displayed. Absolute heaven dragon souls appeared on Empyrean Long Ruo's body, roaming continuously. One of the dragon souls seemed to have obtained some kind of great fortune, transforming into a true dragon. Yin and Yang Qi flew out of Jixian's body. They rotated continuously, sometimes forming the 8 trigrams, sometimes the 9 palaces. A faint heavenly venerate pressure was slowly released from his body. Although he did not directly become a celestial venerable, he had glimpsed the mysteries of celestial venerables in advance. At that time, as long as he consumed a celestial venerable fruit, he would definitely become a celestial venerable. The spirit of the celestial pole list suddenly woke up from the Tao rhyme. Seeing the changes in the two of them, it could not help but feel complacent in its heart. As expected of the wife of my spirit of the celestial pole list. Just returning to her position has caused such a huge commotion. Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown amount of time, the shocking changes in the sacred ground finally subsided. Qin Nan and the others opened their eyes together. They saw that the phantoms of gods, demons, Buddhas, etc. that filled the sky no longer existed. The entire land returned to its original peaceful state. The only difference was that the vigorous life force they felt earlier had become even more vigorous. Everything was growing and growing. The return of the Emperor's eye is indeed extraordinary. Ancestor Yukong exhaled a white breath. He was very satisfied in his heart. Even he had gained a lot just now. Qin Nan had a complicated look in his eyes. He could not help but admit that the rare phenomenon caused by Mengli returning to her position was truly a shocking fortune. He and Chen Fenghua had only managed to create the first half of the Datong Heaven art after a few years of wholeheartedly deducing the mysteries of the Book of Tao sealing. However, during that short period of time, he vaguely had an idea about the second half of the Datong Heaven art. If the rare phenomenon had lasted a little longer, his vague idea might have turned into inspiration and become the seed for him to deduce the second half of the Datong Heaven art. Once he had the seed, it would be a lot easier to nurture it into a towering tree. Senior, Li'er has returned to her position. Please fulfill your promise. The spirit of the celestial pole list looked at Old Man's Wuxian. Qin Nan, Ji Xian, and Heavenly Highness Long Rua suppressed the joy in their hearts and looked at the old man in unison. The most important thing was to let Li'er return to the primary upper realm. Of course, Old Man's Wuxian did not decline. He smiled faintly and said, Meng Li'er is the manifestation of a trace of spirituality born from the immortal Emperor Eyes. Now that the immortal Emperor Eyes have returned, this trace of spirituality will naturally be separated from the immortal Emperor Eyes. At least, we need to find a supreme heavenly venerate to summon her spirituality from the immortal Emperor Eyes. Then, we will create a body for her. Once the spirituality enters the body, she will be able to become a human again. The spirit of the celestial pole list was overjoyed. This rescue method was much simpler than he had imagined. Qin Nan was startled. It was that simple? Although there were no supreme heavenly venerates in the primary upper realm, there were existences comparable to supreme heavenly venerates in the Blue Dome. For example, Patriarch Yukong and Old Man's Wuxian should be comparable to supreme heavenly venerate. Wouldn't Li'er be able to survive if they were willing to help? Fellow Taoist on the celestial pole list, in that case, I will lend you a hand. I don't have too many requests. As long as you owe me a favor and help me do some things, that will be enough, Patriarch Yukong quickly said, afraid that he would be left behind. Old Man's Wuxian seized this opportunity. Fellow Taoist Yukong, I'm afraid I can't do as you wish. Old Man's Wuxian shook his head and said, Meng Li'er is a spirituality born from the immortal Emperor Eyes in the primary upper realm. Therefore, only a supreme heavenly venerate born in the primary upper realm can summon her spirituality from the immortal Emperor Eyes. If it were us, we wouldn't be able to do it. Chapter 2468. The expression of the sky pole leaderboard spirit suddenly became extremely gloomy. A faintly discernible terrifying aura was emitted from its body. It did not think it would be difficult to get a Supreme Highness of the primary upper realm involved. Although there were no supreme heavenly venerates in the great upper realm, The martial arts atmosphere in the Great Upper Realm had changed greatly thanks to the efforts of the Great Upper Realm, the divine heavenly martial sect, and other forces, as well as some broad-minded heavenly venerates. For Chang Long Lin Xiaoji Ji Tsang Zhou Di Huangfu Ju Yi Zhao Xian, the Heart Roar ruler, the heavenly Tao Tree, and other peerless geniuses, as well as some of the older generation experts who had been stuck at peak Empyrean for many years, as long as they found a way to become a supreme Empyrean, they would all have it. He had a great chance of becoming a supreme celestial. If the spirit of the celestial pole list asked for their help, they would surely lend a hand. However, there were only 5 years left. Who could become a Supreme Highness in 5 years? How difficult was it to become a Supreme Highness? There was no way to become a Supreme Highness now. What's the second point? The spirit of the celestial pole leaderboard suppressed the surging anger in its heart and asked. The second point is that the Blue Dome and the primary upper realm have long established a rule. Everything in the Blue Dome will not enter the primary upper realm. Although the eyes of the immortal emperors have broken the rule by chance, Mengli is still a heaven highness. Even if you find a supreme highness to revive her, she still belongs to the Blue Dome, Old Man Zhuxian said with a smile. Even if you find a supreme highness to revive her and bring her back to the primary upper realm, it's hard to say whether she will return to your side or return to the primary upper realm. I can't say for sure. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat when he heard the words. At this moment, his doubts from before were suddenly cleared up. From what he knew, the spirit of the celestial pole list should have revived Li. However, due to fate, Li did not return to the spirit of the celestial pole list. She died in the 31st small immortal realm. In the 2050th year of the Saint Heaven calendar, the spirit of the celestial pole list suddenly issued a strange mission to search for a girl with golden eyes. This young girl was the resurrected Li. However, why didn't the spirit of the celestial pole list look for it on its own? I'm afraid it was affected by something. It was a kind of restriction that prevented him from looking for it. He could only issue such a mission, Qin Nan thought. Although he couldn't guess the details, that was the gist of it. The spirit of the celestial pole list had a gloomy expression. It didn't care about the second point. Between the Blue Dome and the major upper realm, there was indeed a deathly rule. However, rules were meant to be broken. The immortal emperor eyes had come to the primary upper realm. Didn't Lin Xiaoji come from the Blue Dome too? The spirit of the celestial pole roll took a deep breath and said softly after a while, Taoist Zhuxian, Taoist Right Kong, you must know how to become a supreme heavenly venerate, right? Now that things had come to this, he could only figure out how to become a supreme Empyrean before he could think of another way. Of course. However, you have to pay a price if you want me to tell you, Progenitor Yukong said with glittering eyes. Right Kong, don't even think about it. Old Man Zhuxian said with a calm smile, you only know how to become a Supreme Highness, but not only do I know, I also know a place in the Blue Dome that you can use to become a Supreme Highness. My bargaining chip is bigger than yours. Progenitor Yukong was startled. There's a place in the Blue Dome to become a Supreme Highness? The spirit of the celestial pole list, Qin Nan, Ji Xian, and heavenly venerable Long Ruo were shocked. For countless years, countless people in the primary upper realm had believed that there must be a place in the Blue Dome to become a Supreme Highness. That place was most likely in the Blue Dome's upper profound realm. However, it was only a guess and no one could prove it. After all, no one had entered the upper profound realm to investigate. Please tell me, Cultivator Zhuxian. The spirit of the celestial pole list quickly brought its fists together and bowed. Why should I? Old Man Zhuxian said with a smile. Why should I tell you? Our cooperation has come to an end. I've fulfilled my promise. The spirit of the celestial pole list's expression changed slightly. It suppressed its displeasure and said, What do you want, cultivators Wuxian? Just tell me. Old man's Wuxian looked straight at it. The smile on his face disappeared as he said, My condition is very simple. I need a servant who will serve me wholeheartedly. Can you do it? The spirit of the celestial pole list's pupils contracted. The expressions of Qin Nan, Ji Xian, and heavenly venerable Long Ruo changed drastically. What was the spirit of the celestial pole list? It established the celestial pole list and was impartial. It brought countless opportunities to countless geniuses in the primary upper realm. It had almost single-handedly made the primary upper realm's martial Dao more and more prosperous. Without it, the primary upper realm's martial Dao would have regressed by 10,000 years. To all the cultivators in the primary upper realm, the spirit of the celestial pole list was equivalent to the primary upper realm's martial Dao symbol. It was the saint in their hearts. Now, this old man's Wuxian wanted the spirit of the celestial pole list, which they respected so much, to be his servant. Qin Nan, Ji Xian, and heavenly venerable Long Ruo could not help but feel anger rising in their hearts. Their gazes towards old man's Wuxian were filled with coldness. At the same time, there was still a trace of helplessness in their hearts. Apart from being angry, what else could they do? They could not defeat old man's Wuxian, and they could not give him any other benefit. Am I supposed to persuade Brother Tian that Li will definitely die and not agree to old man's Wuxian's request? Qin Nan smiled bitterly in his heart. The spirit of the celestial pole list would definitely not believe it. Even if it did, given the spirit of the celestial pole list's personality, Senior, Ji Xian and heavenly venerable Long Ruo wanted to say something but they did not know what to say. Suddenly, they felt a little heartache for the spirit of the celestial pole list. It had sacrificed so much for the primary upper realm. In the end, it only wanted a simple love. Why did it have to suffer such torture? There's no need for you to say anything. The spirit of the celestial pole list trembled slightly, but its expression remained calm as it said, Cultivator, can you change your request? Old man's Wuxian shook his head and said seriously, I'm sorry. It might sound unpleasant, but to be honest, apart from that, there's nothing else you can offer that can move me. Besides, I won't mistreat you even if you become my servant. Instead, I'll give you a great fortune. This great opportunity will let you see the true martial Dao. Patriarch Yukong suddenly smiled and said, Why don't you consider my offer for the celestial pole ranking? As long as you become my servant for 5 years, I'll tell you how to become a Supreme Highness. What do you think? Saying this, he transmitted his voice to the spirit of the celestial pole list and said, Brother, why are you so stubborn? You're the weapon spirit of a connate cardinal treasure and have such great potential. Your future is limitless. Why do you have to go so far for a woman? Listen to my advice. Don't agree to old man's Wuxian's request. In our world, there are many fairies, all of whom are devastatingly beautiful. I can introduce some to you when the time comes. His chips were not as good as Wuxian's, thus he could only ask the spirit of the celestial pole list to give up. However, in his opinion, there was no need to go so far for a woman. No matter how many fairies there are, there's still not Leah, the spirit of the celestial pole list murmured in its heart. It ignored the man and focused on old man's Wuxian. At that instant its pride was completely shattered. Cultivator's Wuxian, the spirit of the celestial pole list lowered its head and said softly. Right at this moment, a huge boom suddenly resounded throughout the entire holy grounds. The flowers, trees, mountains, rivers, etc. were startled and emitted a brilliant glow. Chapter 2469. Qin Nan and the others raised their heads and saw the rift above an immortal mountain suddenly shatter. An ancient aura burst out from it. A mysterious stone seal with a radius of about 300 feet began to slowly appear. A long-haired young man with a blurry appearance sat on the seal. 9 imperious glowing dragons circled his figure and danced around him. The forbidding auras of the sacred ground were triggered by the seal and the young man. Illusionary figures of immortals, demons, gods, and Buddhas appeared one after another. They unleashed tremendous auras and executed their peerless moves aiming at the seal. The whole scene was utterly terrifying, as if the heavens had unleashed their wrath to destroy everything. "Humph! You bunch of dregs, how dare you attack me?" the long-haired young man said disdainfully. He unleashed a scornful aura as the 9 glowing dragons flew into his body. He then threw a few punches forward, resulting in a series of dragon cries echoing in the heavens and earth. Ji Xian and Heaven Highness Longruo were dumbfounded. They were well aware of how terrifying the sacred ground was. And now, the young man on the mysterious seal was able to challenge the entire sacred ground? Is that? Qin Nan's eyes widened. He was too familiar with the seal and the long-haired young man. Wasn't that the 9 dragon seal that he had obtained from Zhou Di in his past life? Wasn't the long-haired young man Wu Di? Holy crap! Why is the clear dragon heaven corroborating seal here? The spirit of the celestial pole list could not help but curse. He had suffered a few great losses in the Blue Dome. Each time, it was the clear dragon heaven corroborating seal that had brought it upon him. Besides, the weapon spirit of the clear dragon heaven corroborating seal was like a peerless demon emperor. He had tried to break into the primary upper realm several times. On several occasions, if he hadn't noticed it in time, the great demon king would have succeeded. Clear dragon heaven corroborating seal? So that's the real name of the 9 dragons seal? Qin Nan's eyes glittered. The name was quite imperious. "Senior, please stop." Old Man's Wuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong reacted at the same time and yelled. If they allowed the clear dragon heaven verifying seal to continue, they would be the ones in trouble no matter what happened. If I were to stop just because you asked me to, where would I put my face? Wu Di glanced at them disdainfully. Suddenly, he saw the spirit of the celestial pole list as well as Qin Nan and the others. His eyes lit up as he said, "Oh, little Emperor, you're here too? When are you going to open the passageway for me and let me go to the great upper realm to play around?" The spirit of the celestial pole list's expression changed slightly. "Senior, that won't do. The cultivators of our primary upper realm have too low of a cultivation base. We can't withstand your torment." Wu Di pursed his lips. Boring. After it finished muttering, it continued to fight against the sky full of gods and demons. Each of its punches and kicks contained unstoppable power. Large swathes of godfiends would be destroyed just like that. At this rate, the countless forbidding auras of the sacred ground would not be able to stop it for more than 100 breaths. "Senior, please stop. The immortal Emperor eyes have just returned. If anything happens, we won't be able to bear the responsibility. Senior, why don't you wait for a while and come back to look for the immortal Emperor eyes?" Old Man's Wuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong completely lost their aura when facing Qin Nan and the others. They lowered their stance and were almost begging Wu Di to stop. "What's wrong with you two? Dilly-dallying, there was no end to it. Don't worry, I'll bring the immortal Emperor eyes out for a stroll. I'll take the responsibility if anything happens," Wu Di said impatiently. "Bring them out for a stroll?" Old Man's Wuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong were startled. The immortal Emperor eyes had just returned, but Wu Di was taking them away with force. It would be a huge mistake. As for troubling Wu Di, that was impossible. The immortal divine steel would only cause trouble for them. "What should we do?" Old Man's Wuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong's foreheads were covered in cold sweat. They were well aware of Wu Di's personality. If they continued to persuade him, Wu Di would attack them without any hesitation. If they dared to resist, Wu Di would slap them to death. The spirit of the celestial pole list and Qin Nan were startled by the situation. They finally saw a glimmer of hope. If I agree to the vast dragon-proof seal, and let him enter the primary upper realm, I can surely ask him to tell me the place and method to become a Supreme Highness. The spirit of the celestial pole list wore a dark expression. It might even lead to the destruction of the primary upper realm. It was something he could not allow to happen. I didn't expect Wu Di to be so fierce in the ancient era. Even the two weapon spirits of the immortal tablet are afraid of him, Qin Nan exclaimed. He then thought, if I can get Wu Di to help me, I'll be able to reach the top of the heaven limit ranking. I'll be able to pass the test of my seniority. He was not willing to see the spirit of the celestial pole list become old man Zhuoxian's servant. However, Qin Nan frowned. He was not in the modern era. He had yet to obtain the vast dragon-proof seal. In Wu Di's eyes, he was just a stranger. Wu Di would never agree to his words. If he told Wu Di that he was his future master, Wu Di would most likely slap him to death. If I knew this would happen, I would have asked Wu Di about his secrets when I returned to the ancient era. The only thing I know now is its name, and how many enemies it has. Qin Nan frowned even harder. Would he be able to get Wu Di to help him with just these two advantages? Let's try it first. Qin Nan glanced at old man Zhuoxian and old ancestor Yukong and transmitted his voice. Seniors, do you know the name of the seal's weapon spirit? Do you know who its enemies are? If it were any other time, old man Zhuoxian and old ancestor Yukong would find his question extremely strange. However, they were not interested in it at all. Old ancestor Yukong, in particular, snapped furiously. How would I know senior's name? Don't ***king bother me, I'm annoyed right now. You don't know? Qin Nan's heart shuddered. Brother Tian, do you know the seal? What's its name? Why is it so arrogant? Qin Nan was still worried. He glanced at the spirit of the celestial pole list. I guess I do. The seal is called the vast dragon-proof seal. It's unbeatable in the Blue Dome. As for its origin and name, I have no idea. I only know that it's unstoppable in the Blue Dome. It's not afraid of it at all. The spirit of the celestial pole list shook its head. You don't know either? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as a thought crossed his mind. Chapter 2470. Hearing this, old man Zhuoxian, progenitor Yukong, and the spirit of the celestial pole list were startled. Progenitor Yukong even cursed furiously. Kid, what are you talking about? How dare you call senior a kid? Don't drag us into this if you're tired of living. Before he could finish, he suddenly felt a chill running down his spine. Wu Di, who was fighting against the deities and demons, suddenly stopped and glanced in their direction. Old man Zhuoxian and the spirit of the celestial pole list felt a chill running down their spine too. Knowing the temper of the spirit of the vast dragon-proof heavenly seal, it would surely kill Qin Nan in a fit of rage. Even they would most likely be implicated in this. Senior, please calm down. The spirit of the celestial pole list swiftly reacted. Shut up! Wu Di snapped. His eyes were fixed on Qin Nan. His terrifying aura was enough to make the deities and demons tremble in fear. You're a cultivator from the primary upper realm, right? Don't you know the heaven pole ranking of your primary upper realm? You're nothing but trash in front of me. How dare you call me a kid? Qin Nan said with a fearless expression. So what? I only have one question for you. Do you dare to have a bet with me? If you don't dare, then don't talk nonsense. Wu Di squinted and said, Kid, don't you think I can't tell that you're trying to provoke me? However, I would like to see what you're going to bet with me today. Qin Nan placed his hands behind him and said imperceptibly, I have a law-defying divination art. Do you believe I can use it to deduce your name? I can even deduce who you've offended in the Blue Dome and what you'll encounter in the future. What? Pooh! Ji Xian could not help but blurt out. I'm sorry. Ji Xian waved his hands and apologized. However, his eyes were filled with a strange look. Since when did Lin Xiaoji have a divination art? It was clearly him. Xiaoji, what the hell are you doing? The origin of this clear dragon heaven-verifying seal was extremely mysterious. It might even be related to the great secret of the entire Blue Dome. How do you know Senior's real name? The spirit of the celestial pole list hurriedly whispered to him. Don't worry, Brother Tian, I know what to do, Qin Nan said. The spirit of the celestial pole list was bewildered by his words. Based on his understanding of Lin Xiaoji was definitely not a reckless person. However, where did his confidence come from? This kid came from the Blue Dome. Could it be that he learned of all this by chance? The spirit of the celestial pole list thought. Ah, you think you can deduce my real name? Wu Di couldn't help but laugh at the sky, his laughter booming like thunder. Since the person before him was from the Great Upper Realm, the deduction method he obtained was definitely from the Great Upper Realm. How could a mere deduction method of the Great Upper Realm be able to deduce his true name? Are you kidding me? Besides, even if the kid was lucky enough to obtain some terrifying deduction method from the Blue Dome, there was no way he could see through the heavenly secrets and learn his real name. Not to mention that the kid was only a Heaven Highness. On top of that, he wasn't afraid of Qin Nan's tricks at all. Since he was born, he had always been calling himself Master. Even the people of the Donghuang Great Void Chain did not know his real name. He was the only one who knew his real name. I'll bet with you. What do you want to bet on? Wu Di said immediately. It's very simple. If I manage to deduce your real name, you will help me rescue the wisp of spirit in the eyes of the immortal Emperor and allow her to be reborn in the Great Upper Realm. If I'm wrong or fail to deduce your real name, you can do whatever you want with me. Qin Nan was overjoyed when he saw Wu Di taking the bait. A wisp of spirit in the eyes of the immortal Emperor? The wisp of spirit was born in the Great Upper Realm. Only a Supreme Highness of the Great Upper Realm can summon it. I might be able to rescue her, but it will damage the eyes of the immortal Emperor. Wu Di said. You can't do that. Old Man Zhuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong were startled. You heard it too. You can't do that. Let's change the bet. Wu Di waved his hand. If that's the case, let's change the bet. Can you bring us to the Blue Dome so we can achieve the Supreme Highness realm? Qin Nan decided to settle for the second best. It's nothing. Wu Di chuckled and said, however, I'll have to change the bet. If you can't deduce my real name, not only will I teach you a lesson, I'll teach everyone here a lesson too. He was a little excited when he said this. This kind of gambling game was quite interesting. Old Man Zhuxian, Progenitor Yukong, the spirit of the celestial pole list, and the others were startled. As he thought, they were involved too. Senior, you can't do that. Old Man Zhuxian and Progenitor Yukong brought their fists together. How could Qin Nan possibly deduce their real name when he was only a Heaven Highness? Enough with the nonsense, it's settled then. Kid, you can start now. Wu Di harumphed coldly and unleashed his aura. Sure. Qin Nan did not hesitate. He sat down with his legs crossed and performed a series of hand seals while uttering some incantations that even he did not understand. He wore a stern look as his body emitted wisps of light. His aura became mystical. On the surface, it looked like he was actually executing a law-defying divination art. Cultivator of the Heaven Pole ranking. Old Man Zhuxian and Progenitor Yukong did not dare to oppose Wu Di. They turned to the spirit of the celestial pole list and said coldly, Who did you bring here? How dare he be so reckless? Do you know that we're in big trouble? They were truly infuriated. Ji Xian and Heaven Highness Long Rua could not help but transmit their voices to the spirit of the celestial pole list. Senior, let's run for our lives. the spirit of the celestial pole list immediately felt a headache coming on. What else could they do? Run? That was impossible. The only thing they could do was to pray that Lin Xiaoji did not set them up. Change of the great Tao, movement of the stars, eye of truth, peek into the future, supreme sincerity, peek into fate. The spell that Qin Nan was chanting suddenly became louder. He changed his hand seal and slapped forward, unleashing a strong aura. What the hell? Wu Di's expression was one of confusion. He did not know what kind of divination art Qin Nan was using. In his perception, Qin Nan was only uttering a few words. He did not do anything at all. When he was about to ask, Qin Nan exhaled deeply, as if he had just finished his work. He said, "It's over." Everyone's gazes subconsciously turned to look at him. "What's my name?" Wu Di could not help but ask. Chapter 2471. Wu Di. Invincible? Why would the weapon spirit of the vast dragon heaven-proving seal have such a vulgar name? The same thought crossed the minds of the spirit of the celestial pole list, old man Zhuoxuan, progenitor Yukong, and the others. At the same time, their hearts were filled with a great chill. Without a doubt, the weapon spirit of the vast dragon heaven-proving seal was going to be infuriated. K-me. Did you really predict it? Wu Di cursed. He even wondered if he had heard it wrong. K-me. Did I really guess it right? The spirit of the celestial pole list, old man Zhuoxuan, progenitor Yukong, and the others cursed in their hearts too. They too wondered if they had heard it wrong. The weapon spirit of the vast dragon heaven-proving seal was really called Wu Di? Xiao Ji, you're really something. The spirit of the celestial pole list collected its thoughts and patted Qin Nan's shoulder with excitement. It was obvious that Qin Nan must have learned the name of the vast dragon heaven-proving seal through some kind of coincidence when he was at the Blue Dome. He did not believe Qin Nan knew any kind of divination art. However, Qin Nan had done him a great favor this time. If Qin Nan had not interfered, he would have agreed to become old man Zhuoxuan's servant. However, if that was the case, his life would be ruined. His pride, confidence, and martial heart would all crumble. This kid. The eyes of old man Zhuoxuan and progenitor Yukong flickered. It was impossible that Qin Nan had learned the name of the vast dragon heaven-proving seal through guessing. If he had really deduced it, how outstanding was the divination art that Qin Nan had mastered. The primary upper realm, as expected. The hearts of the two weapon spirits shuddered. TSK, not bad at all. Young man, how did you manage to deduce it? I didn't feel anything just now. Wu Di's interest in Qin Nan was piqued. He ignored the sky full of gods and devils and flew over from the sacred ground. His eyes circled around Qin Nan as if he wanted to see through Qin Nan. Qin Nan's expression was as usual as he said indifferently, "It's normal that you didn't notice. That's because the deduction technique I've grasped is no ordinary deduction technique. Let's cut to the chase. I've calculated your name, so it's time for you to fulfill your promise." The spirit of the celestial pole list immediately stared at Wu Di. Wu Di waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, I've always been a man of my word. Come to the seal now, I'll take you there personally." Saying this, the clear dragon heaven corroborating seal expanded by 10 times. Various godly rays were emitted from the seal, giving it an ancient and mysterious feeling. The spirit of the celestial pole list was overjoyed. It immediately flew onto the seal, followed by Qin Nan and the others. "Cultivator Lin, you're impressive. We're impressed." Old man Zhuoxuan looked at Lin Xiaoji and said, "If that's the case, I can only wish you all the best in becoming a Supreme Highness." The spirit of the celestial pole list looked at him and said in a deep voice, "Taoist Zhuoxian, if I become a Supreme Heavenly Venerate, I'll have to trouble you to open the path for me to reach this sacred place. Before old Manswishwan could speak, progenitor Yukong blurted out, "Cultivator of the celestial pole ranking, don't you worry, I'll bring you here when the time comes." The spirit of the celestial pole list was the spirit of a natural artifact. It already had the power to crush a supreme highness before it achieved its Tao. Once it became a supreme highness, it would be on equal footing with them. As a matter of fact, it might even surpass them in other aspects. "Stop wasting time," Wu Di waved his hand. He glanced in the direction of the immortal Emperor Eyes reluctantly and murmured, "Little Eyes, I'll come for you in a few days." After saying that, the clear dragon heaven-verifying seal shattered the void and forcefully traversed the entire sacred ground. Progenitor Yukong withdrew his gaze and chuckled, "I've lost more than I gained this time. I wanted to recruit the spirit of the celestial pole list as my servant, but I failed. The spirit of the celestial pole list will be very displeased after this." Old Manswishwan glanced at him and said with a smile, "It's nothing." Progenitor Yukong withdrew his smile and said, "Stop playing dumb. Don't lose your position as the artifact's spirit because of something so trivial." Old Manswishwan shook his head and said, "You're too short-sighted. You've only wanted to refine me. I'm different. I'm not only planning to devour you." Progenitor Yukong clicked his tongue and said disdainfully, "What else can you be planning? The rules of the immortal divine monument dictate that we can only control the outermost layer." Old Manswishwan left without saying another word. Why would he waste his breath on someone who was about to die? At the same time, the clear dragon-proof seal emitted a brilliant glow and traveled through the rift at a shocking speed. Wu Di glanced at Qin Nan and the others and said, "There's a place deep inside the Blue Dome called the Emperor-Slaying Platform. It can help you achieve the Supreme Highness realm. This platform was born due to some kind of coincidence. It's not a supreme artifact, nor is it a peerless treasure. It's a treasure ground but a space-time light." Qin Nan and the others were startled. The spirit of the celestial pole list immediately asked, "Space-time light? What's that?" Wu Di said disdainfully, "You're the spirit of a natural artifact of a world, yet you don't even know this." The so-called space-time light referred to something that had happened in the past. It had undergone some sort of change, and thus had been preserved. No matter who it is, after a long time, later generations can enter this space-time light and experience what happened at that time. Celestial Venerable Long Ruo was shocked. There's such an existence in this world? If we enter this space-time light, won't we change what's happening inside? Wu Di shook his head. Change is impossible, because everything inside the space-time light is not real. It's a great illusion. Even if you change everything after entering, it will still return to its original state in the end. That's right. Qin Nan came to a realization. He immediately asked, "Wu Di, why is the space-time light Emperor-Slaying Platform able to help us achieve the Supreme Highness realm?" Wu Di chuckled, "Can't you guess? It's very simple. Everything that happens in this space-time light is the ascension of the Lord of the Blue Dome to the Supreme Highness realm. Although the space-time light doesn't really exist, it's something else." Chapter 2472. What shocked Qin Nan and the others wasn't that the light of space-time execution stage would allow them to break through to the supreme heavenly venerate realm. Rather, it was those four simple words, "Master of the Blue Dome." All this time, the powerhouses of the primary upper realm had made countless guesses about the Blue Dome. The most acceptable guess was that there were many supreme treasures within the Blue Dome, as well as all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, vicious beasts, and so on. It was very likely that it was a forbidden land in another world, an existence similar to the celestial venerable battlefield. But due to some sort of coincidence, it was connected to the entire primary upper realm and became a passage. As long as one could pass through the Blue Dome, they would definitely be able to enter another world. But now Wu Di had accidentally revealed the words Master of the Blue Dome. This was enough to prove that this guess was wrong. The entire Blue Dome belonged to a mysterious existence. If such a terrifying Blue Dome belongs to a single person, then just how terrifying would the so-called Master of the Blue Dome be? Qin Nan and the others all sucked in a breath of cold air. Fellow Taoist Wu Di, this Master of the Blue Dome you speak of, what kind of existence is that? The spirit of the celestial pole list's eyes flashed as it asked. Ah? Master of the Blue Dome? What did you say? Wu Di realized that he had let it slip and pretended to be confused. Wu Di, your acting skills are too bad. Qin Nan pursed his lips. Ahem, is that so? Wu Di waved his hand resentfully. I can't tell you about the Master of the Blue Dome. Otherwise, even I would be severely punished. Of course, I can find all the secrets in the Blue Dome. I can find them in the Blue Dome. If you have the ability, you can go and find them yourselves. The spirit of the celestial pole list didn't ask any more questions after hearing Wu Di's words. It could only suppress its curiosity and asked, Fellow Taoist Wu Di, how do we enter the Emperor-slaying platform? Wu Di said, the monarch-slaying stage is located in the green firmament upper mystic region. With your cultivation, going there is no different from suicide. At this point, Wu Di paused for a moment, then continued proudly, however, with me protecting you, there won't be any problems. I will bring you directly to the place, and you can jump in by yourselves. The spirit of the celestial pole list was excited. He immediately sat down cross-legged, recuperating and accumulating power. Empyrean Longrual was even more excited. He simply did not expect that he would actually obtain such a huge lucky chance this time. He glanced gratefully at Qin Nan and began to accumulate power along with the spirit of the celestial pole list. Lord Wu Di, with my peak sovereign cultivation, will I be able to become a celestial exalt if I charge into the monarch execution stage? Ji Xian asked with a hopeful look in his eyes. What do you think? Wu Di said disdainfully. That is a grand event for the Master of the Blue Dome and the others to become a supreme celestial exalt. Once you enter, you will only be able to watch from afar. Ji Xian was instantly depressed. He looked at Qin Nan with resentment. Why are you looking at me like that? Qin Nan felt goosebumps rising from the bottom of his heart. Little brother Lin, you are too unkind. Back then, we went through fire and water together, overcoming difficulties together. Now that you have soared to the heavens, you have completely forgotten about your brother. I am really, Ji Xian said bitterly. If you have something to say, then say it quickly. Don't give me that crap. Qin Nan's mouth twitched. He immediately reprimanded Ji Xian. Little brother Lin, this little brother of yours cultivates the art of divination. You have such a powerful divination art. Why do you need to give me pointers? Ji Xian said resentfully. Qin Nan was speechless. He didn't expect Ji Xian to be concerned about this. He immediately transmitted his voice in annoyance. What kind of divination art do I know? That's all for Wu Di. I already know his name. Ji Xian was stunned. Then, he became even more depressed. He was a peak sovereign, but he had been worried and scared the entire time. In the end, he was the only one who didn't get any benefit. Kid, I haven't asked your name yet. Suddenly, Wu Di's gaze turned toward Qin Nan. Lin Xiaoji. Wu Di chuckled and said, Little friend Lin, your divination art is so powerful. Can you give me another one? For example, what will happen to me in the future or something like that? Qin Nan was moved. He said, I can give you a divination, but my divination art has great side effects. Every time I use it, it will cause me great harm. You should at least give me some benefits, right? Wu Di wasn't surprised to hear this. What a joke. He wouldn't believe that a mere heavenly venerate of the primary upper realm could divine his name without great side effect. That's only natural. Wu Di waved his hand and said grandly, I, Wu Di, am not a stingy person. I'll take you to the depths of the Blue Dome later. If you see anything you like, you can take 3. I like you, Qin Nan thought to himself. However, he didn't say it out loud. Given Wu Di's current condition, who knew what would happen if he dared to say it? However, Qin Nan refused without thinking. Forget about those things. They don't mean anything to me. Why don't you tell me some of the secrets of the Master of the Blue Dome? Wu Di's face fell instantly. He cried, Brother, don't look at me like I'm all high and mighty. However, I really can't tell you this. If I do, I'll definitely be killed. But, he rolled his eyes and said, I can tell you a big secret. When you enter the monarch execution stage, you'll definitely gain great benefit. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. He heard him say, however, you have to give me a divination first. Qin Nan thought about it. The current Wu Di was still a man of his word. He immediately sat down cross-legged and mimicked what he did before. He began to act mysterious. On the other side, Ji Xian looked over suspiciously. It's done. After a long while, Qin Nan forcefully reversed his blood energy, causing his face to become much paler. He transmitted his voice. Wu Di, one day in the future, there will be a bloody calamity. Wu Di jumped in fright. He hurriedly asked, What bloody calamity? Is there a way to resolve it? Qin Nan shook his head. It's very difficult, but I can tell you that the Grand Orient Void Chain and Qin Nan told him about the supreme treasures he encountered in the Blue Dome. Damn it, those bastards actually dared to gang up on me. When I get back, I'll kill them all. Wu Di rubbed his palms together and gnashed his teeth. Chapter 2473. Qin Nan was taken aback by the question. Wu Di's question was a little strange. Wu Di knew that he would one day be taken by a cultivator from the primary upper realm. Wait! A sudden thought crossed Qin Nan's mind, as he recalled a detail that he had neglected for a long time. Judging from the methods Wu Di had displayed in the sacred ground, Wu Di's strength was definitely above that of a supreme Empyrean. If that was the case, why were Tsang Di, Zhou Di, Huang Fuju, and Yi Zhaoxian able to compete for Wu Di after becoming supreme Empyreans? In fact, they had even sealed Wu Di in the end, allowing him to take advantage of the situation. Judging from the current situation, that was absolutely impossible. Many thoughts flashed through Qin Nan's mind, but he couldn't come up with an answer. He could only suppress his curiosity and ask tentatively, Wu Di, how did you know that you would be taken by a cultivator from the primary upper realm? Is there really a cultivator in this world who can take you? Wu Di harumphed, Brother Lin Lao, I'm not bragging, but with my strength, even if the emperor of that world came down, he would have no choice but to submit to me. However, his expression turned bleak. Even though I am the strongest in the Blue Dome, I am still unable to transcend the rules set by the Master of the Blue Dome. It's not just me. The Dongwang Great Void Chain and all the treasures in the Blue Dome will eventually be taken by the cultivators of the primary upper realm. According to the Master of the Blue Dome, they are the fated ones. Hearing this, Qin Nan felt as if several bolts of immortal lightning had struck his mind. His mind was greatly shaken. Never had he imagined that there was actually such a shocking secret hidden within the Azure Sky Palace. If that's the case, all the treasures in the Blue Dome seem to have been prepared by the mysterious Master of the Blue Dome for the cultivators of the primary upper realm. But why would the Master of the Blue Dome do this? Qin Nan took a deep breath. If it were him, there would only be two reasons why he would set up a divine land like the Green Dome realm and leave behind so many supreme treasures. First, he wanted to leave behind a legacy and a successor for himself. Secondly, he wanted to nurture a group of people and let them grow up so that he could use them in the future. Or perhaps they were going to carry out some sort of mission. Based on the current situation, the second point is very likely. No, that's not right. If it really was the second reason, then why did he choose cultivators from the primary upper realm? The master of the Blue Dome obviously came from another world and wielded incredible power. As for strength, he can choose from that world. If that's the case, we can't avoid this question. Why didn't he choose a successor from that world? The level of martial arts in that world is obviously much higher than in the primary upper realm. Thoughts flashed through Qin Nan's mind. Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. Qin Nan finally shook his head. The master of the Blue Dome, what kind of mystical existence was that? How could he possibly guess what he was thinking? Hey, old bro, don't just be shocked. Wu Di had a worried look on his face as he transmitted his voice. Hurry up and calculate for me who that bastard is that got me. Think about it, I dominated the Blue Dome and crushed all treasures. Don't let a bastard get me. My balls got me. Qin Nan's face darkened. You're the bastard. Wu Di, after what you said to me just now, I have a strange feeling in my heart, Qin Nan said mysteriously. Tell me about it. Qin Nan said, I think the person who got you might be me. Qin Nan tried to say it, but to his surprise, the power of space-time didn't hinder him. TCH with just you? Wu Di sneered. Little brother Lin Lao, don't say that I'm looking down on you. You're just a mere peak heavenly venerable. You want to get me? I'm hindered by the rules. No matter how much my power is restricted, it's still nothing. If a heavenly venerable comes. Wu Di suddenly realized something, and his eyes widened. F***ck me. I almost forgot. Aren't you on your way to the Emperor slaying stage to become a supreme heavenly venerable? Qin Nan couldn't do it now, but that didn't mean that Qin Nan couldn't do it in the future. Qin Nan couldn't help but laugh. What do you think? Wu Di, you'll let me have you when the time comes, right? Wu Di's expression changed. He seemed a little displeased and unwilling, but in the end, he suddenly thought of something and chuckled. You have a point. In any case, due to the rules, we'll be taken by the cultivators of the great upper realm eventually. When the time comes, I might as well let you have it, brother Lin. Anyway, I like you. His smile widened. However, little brother Lin Lao, even if you become a supreme heavenly venerable, it'll still be extremely difficult for you to get the vast dragon-proof heavenly seal. Why don't you agree to a few conditions, and I'll open a back door for you? What do you think? After that, he added, little brother Lin Lao, this is a great opportunity for you. I'm invincible in the entire Blue Dome, and I'm even involved. Anyway, once you get the vast dragon-proof heavenly seal, you'll be able to do it. You'll have a great future ahead of you. Qin Nan was disinterested. What conditions? Whether Wu Di opened a back door or not, the vast dragon-proof heavenly seal was already in his hands. This was an unchangeable fact. Wu Di pondered for a while before saying, I don't ask for much. First, there's no distinction between master and servant between you and me. We'll treat each other as equals. Second, you can't pressure me according to the rules. Third, we have to beat people up together. Fourth, we have to cause trouble often. Qin Nan was wondering what kind of conditions it would be, but he ended up with more than a dozen conditions, all of which were trivial matters. He immediately said, No problem. Wu Di was quite excited. Then it's settled. Ha ha ha, that old man won't be able to imagine that even though I'll abide by his rules, I can decide on a fated person in advance. Come, little brother Lin Lao, I'll set up something in your body in advance. After saying that, Wu Di flicked his finger, and an ancient light entered Qin Nan's soul. Old brother Wu Di, since we're going to work together in the future, I'd like to ask for your help if we encounter any problems before that, Qin Nan said. This was the reason why he'd agreed to Wu Di's request. He'd even changed the way he addressed Wu Di to show his closeness. After all, He still had a few decades to spend in the primary upper realm. If he had Wudi's help, then all the dangers in the Blue Dome would cease to exist. At that time, he might be able to uncover all the secrets in the Blue Dome. No problem. When the time comes, I'll bring you to roam the Blue Dome. Chapter 2474. The Spirit of the Celestial Pole List and Heavenly Highness Long Rua opened their eyes at the same time. Their eyes flickered. In front of them, the heavens and earth had turned into a colorful glow. The sky, ground, and everything else no longer existed. It was as if they had arrived before a world of light. The glow was incredibly vast. It was impossible to see its end with a single glance. The soaring dragon-proof seal was like a grain of sand in the vast ocean before it. It was extremely tiny. In addition to that, Qin Nan and the others also saw peak Heaven Highness realm beasts and some strange creatures rushing into the glow at a shocking speed. It was obvious that these existences that were born in the Blue Dome had overcome countless difficulties and arrived at the upper profound realm of the Blue Dome. They were planning to achieve the Supreme Highness realm using the space-time glow known as the Emperor Slaying Stage. Everyone can only enter the Emperor Slaying Stage once in their lifetime, so you must cherish this opportunity. Don't miss it, Wudi said. Besides, once you're inside, you don't have to hold back. You can cause as much trouble as you want. Cause trouble. The Emperor Slaying Stage is just a space-time glow, similar to a memory. You won't be able to affect or change anything. Wudi paused for a moment before he added, besides, the Emperor Slaying Stage will take 6 months from the beginning to the end. If you die in there, or don't come out when the time is up, you'll be dead for good. Ji Xian's hair stood on end after hearing the words. He said, Brother Tian, you should go in then. I'm only a peak ruler, so I won't be joining in the fun. Wudi glanced at him and said, Kid, are you sure you don't want to go in? The Emperor Slaying Stage is a great opportunity for you. Even though you won't be able to achieve the Supreme Highness realm inside, everyone inside the Emperor Slaying Stage is extraordinary. They're all existences. If you can gain the appreciation of one of them and receive their guidance, then your understanding of martial arts and cultivation techniques will improve by leaps and bounds. Also, although all the treasures in the Monarch Slaying Stage will disappear after you devour them, you will return to the Blue Dome realm after the Monarch Slaying Stage. However, you can understand the true essence of those treasures and heavenly materials. It won't disappear. As soon as he said this, Qin Nan, the spirit of the celestial pole list, and Empyrean Long Rua's eyes flashed. After Wudi's reminder, they finally realized that the Monarch Execution Stage wasn't just about breaking through to the Supreme Celestial Realm with the Master of the Blue Dome. It was also a great opportunity to discuss the martial Tao with the big shots in the Emperor Execution Stage. F***CK. I can't believe the space-time light is so mysterious. Ji Xian's eyes lit up. Wudi waved his hand and said, All right, all of you restrain your auras and jump into the light. Saying this, Wudi transmitted his voice to Qin Nan, Brother Lin Lao, didn't I say that I'll tell you a great secret if you help me calculate it? Qin Nan's heart shuddered. He had only mentioned it casually to get some benefits from Wudi. He did not expect Wudi to actually take it seriously. The secret I'm about to give you will come in handy once you enter the Monarch Execution Stage. Wudi chuckled. He suddenly flicked his finger and fired a ray of light into Qin Nan's divine sense. Bang! Qin Nan's divine sense shuddered vigorously, producing a series of deafening explosions. It was as if a magnificent door had been opened. Wisps of light floated out from it and slowly formed a painting in Qin Nan's divine sense. The painting depicted a man in a blue robe. His black hair reached his shoulders, and his facial features were handsome. It felt like he had transcended the world. Suddenly, the man in the painting seemed to have come alive. His eyes were staring at Qin Nan's soul. Qin Nan's expression changed. He immediately activated the heavenly chant of great unity. The eyes of the man in the painting were like peerless swords, slashing at Qin Nan's soul. Even though Qin Nan reacted quickly and tried to defend himself, he still suffered a heavy blow. His body shuddered violently. Who is this man in the painting? Just his gaze alone is enough to injure my soul? Qin Nan was astounded. He looked at Wu Di. The man in the painting is the master of the Blue Dome. Once you enter the monarch execution stage, you can use this painting to identify him and find him. Wu Di lowered his voice and said, "This old man has two hobbies. One is to rob and the other is to rob. After you find him, follow him and work with him. He will definitely give you a lot of benefits." Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. This man in blue was the master of the mysterious and terrifying Blue Dome? Right, there's one more thing you have to remember. Although this old man was only a peak heavenly venerable in the monarch execution stage, he had already comprehended it. However, at that time, he had already comprehended it. Well, in short, you can only interact with him alone. Remember not to bring him along. Otherwise, not only will you not benefit from the heavenly venerate rankings, you won't even have the chance to become a supreme heavenly venerable. Wu Di warned solemnly. I understand. Old brother Wu Di, many thanks. Qin Nan expressed his gratitude. He didn't expect that his casual mention would bring him such great benefit. Wu Di is currently at his peak. He knows the secrets of the Blue Dome like the back of his hand. Once I return from the monarch execution stage, I'll definitely capture him. Qin Nan thought to himself. Let's go. Qin Nan and the others looked at each other. They immediately retracted their auras and flew toward the light. Ji Xian was still a little hesitant at first, but Wu Di suddenly kicked him in the butt and sent him flying. Uncle Wu is very happy today, very happy. Wu Di hummed a little tune as he flew in another direction. At the same time, Qin Nan and the others entered the light. They instantly felt a vast and profound power of space-time wrap around their bodies. It was as if they had walked into a teleportation formation and were being brought to a mysterious place. Gradually, Qin Nan could no longer see the spirit of the celestial pole list and the others. His sea of consciousness grew heavier and heavier, and he began to feel drowsy. Qin Nan didn't resist. Instead, he took advantage of this drowsiness and prepared to fall asleep. At that moment, the space-time power enveloping him began to burn fiercely like a flame. Qin Nan felt a stabbing pain. Chapter 2475. Qin Nan frowned after taking a closer look. His body, divine sense, soul, and the power of rules in his body were perfectly unharmed. However, the burning sensation was incomparably real. It was not an illusion at all. It must be because my soul has returned to the ancient times and stepped into the space-time light. It must have triggered some mystical changes in the space-time light, Qin Nan speculated. He tried using the Great Tong Heaven art, the art of the immortal demon, and other arts to defend himself. He had no idea what the burning sensation of the space-time force was, but it was surely nothing good. However, the burning space-time force was not affected at all. It was unstoppable. I guess I can only let nature take its course. Qin Nan shook his head to calm his thoughts. Qin Nan no longer felt sleepy after the sudden change. He started calculating the time while deducing the Great Tong Heaven art in his heart. Time gradually passed. Around 5 days had passed, yet Qin Nan still had not entered the space-time light. He was still traveling through the light while being burned by the space-time force. Initially, Qin Nan was not too concerned about the rare phenomenon, but gradually, he began to have a strange feeling in his heart. Qin Nan's heart shuddered as he tried to comprehend it, but to no avail. A while later, the arcane feeling in his heart began to expand, as he finally caught hold of it. It was a feeling of rejection. It did not come from the space-time light, but the rules of space-time. The rules of space-time are rejecting me? Could it be? Qin Nan's heart sank. He was not familiar with the space-time force, but he was extremely talented in martial arts. He had also reached the peak Heaven Highness realm and refined his own rules of Tao. He soon came to a conclusion. He had used the Sherdao tribe's secret art to return to the ancient era. According to the Sherdao tribe's speculation, if they succeeded, they would be able to stay in the ancient era for 100 years. If they were still alive after 100 years, the space-time force would send them back to the ancient era. This 100 years could be seen as the tolerance of the space-time law. Returning to the ancient era from the future was a violation of the rules of space-time. In a year, 10 years, or even a few decades, the space-time laws would not expel them. However, in 100 years, the space-time laws would not tolerate them. Previously, no matter what Qin Nan did, he would only be obstructed by the space-time law. He would never be repelled by the space-time law like today. This situation was very similar to when he entered the light of space-time, which caused some mysterious changes to occur. As a result, the space-time law's tolerance for him was much higher. If it's really as I've guessed, then I'm afraid the time I'll be sent back to the future by the space-time power will be brought forward. Qin Nan sighed in his heart. It seemed that everything would not always go according to one's wishes. Based on the current situation, if he and the spirit of the celestial pole list successfully ascended to a supreme heavenly venerate in the space-time light, then the celestial pole list would become a supreme heavenly venerate. Then, in the next few decades, he would have a lot of time to lay out his plans, understand the Blue Dome, and master it even more. The power of the future. When he returned to the future, he would have a better chance against Song and Yi Zhaoxian. It's fine if I go back 10 or 20 years in advance. Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. It was already a great fortune for him to be able to enter the light of spacetime. What he needed to do now was to make good use of the opportunity. Time gradually passed. Around 10 days later, when Qin Nan's resistance grew stronger, a faint sound suddenly echoed in his heart and knocked him out. In the midst of his confusion, Qin Nan could faintly hear some voices echoing in his ears. Huh? Why would someone faint here? They aren't weak either, 3 peak heaven highnesses, and a peak ruler realm. Humph, I bet they're cultivators from some remote place. They didn't know the rules, so they went straight to the mountainside through a formation or something. TSK, they're lucky that they only fainted after coming straight to the mountainside. Qin Nan's eyes sprang open as he came to his senses. He rose to his feet almost instantly. The heavenly art of assimilation and other arts in his body were fully unleashed. He was ready to fight at any time. Ha, cultivator, there's no need to be so nervous. Before the Great Evolution World Mountain is activated, no one is allowed to use violence here. Once you use force, you'll be obliterated by the Grand Evolution World Mountain. A burst of laughter echoed in front of Qin Nan. Qin Nan followed the voice and saw more than 10 cultivators in front of him. There were men and women, old and young among the cultivators. They were wearing clothes that he had never seen before. 2 of them were emitting auras in the greater success stage of the Heaven Highness realm. The rest of them were in the ruler realm. I've entered the light of spacetime? Qin Nan brought his fists together as a thought crossed his mind. Thanks for telling me. He was slightly relieved. He lifted his gaze and observed the scenery before him. In front of him were ancient immortal palaces floating between the heavens and earth while emitting brilliant light. There were also magnificent cities floating in the rift like heavenly dragons and ancient phoenixes. Rays of light were flying toward him from all directions. They entered the light of spacetime like a scroll slowly opening in front of Qin Nan. In addition to it, the place was filled with an indescribably pure aura. The aura was extremely unfamiliar. He had never seen it before. In addition to that, the heavenly art of assimilation in Qin Nan's body was restless. It was trying to absorb the aura into its body. What kind of aura is this? Qin Nan was startled. One had to know that his great harmonization heavenly art cultivated the body of origin. The force of origin was the purest source of power between the heavens and earth. And now, the mysterious aura that was everywhere was causing the heavenly art of assimilation to circulate on its own. It indicated that the aura was extremely suitable for the body of origin. Let's not think too much about it. Qin Nan glanced to his side and saw the spirit of the celestial pole list, Heavenly Highness Long Rua, and Ji Xian lying on the ground in deep slumber. Qin Nan immediately flicked his finger and fired 3 rays of light into their bodies. He brought his fists together and said, "Fellow cultivators, the 4 of us have accidentally entered some ancient ruins. We were teleported to this place. I hope you can help us solve the problem. I'm very grateful for your help." Chapter 2476. The first one to speak was one of the 2 Heaven Highnesses, an energetic old man in a red robe. He was the one who had told Qin Nan that no one was allowed to fight in the Dian world. Meanwhile, the spirit of the celestial pole list, Heaven Highness Long Rua, and Ji Xian were startled. They reacted the same way as Qin Nan when he first woke up. They immediately went on alert and waited for the right moment. They finally calmed down after taking a closer look at their surroundings. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The old man in a red robe collected his thoughts and said with a smile, "It seems like the world you're in isn't ordinary. Even the reputable Dian World Mountain isn't familiar with it." Beside the old man was a young woman in the early stage of the ruler realm in a golden silk dress. She wore an impatient look and said, "Elder, why are you wasting your time on these desolated people? Let's hurry over." The old man straightened his face and said, "Xiao, don't be rude." The young woman's expression shifted slightly. She was about to lose her temper, but she had no choice but to endure it due to the old man's identity. She harumphed coldly and turned her head away, no longer looking at Qin Nan and the others. "Young man, Xiao is young and immature. Please don't blame her," the old man in a red robe said while bringing his fists together. "It's fine," Qin Nan waved his hand. He had seen too many situations like this, thus he was not too bothered by it. "May I know your name, young friend?" "I'm Lin Xiaoji, and these 3 are my friends." "So it's young cultivator Lin. I'm Martial Highness Hong Yen. You can call me Martial Highness Hong Yen." Martial Highness Hong Yen stroked his beard and said with a smile, "The Dian World Mountain is the heirloom treasure of the Dian Heavenly Sect during the ancient times. It's also the strongest sacred mountain during the ancient times. The Dian Heavenly Sect was quite impressive in the past. It had 10 martial emperors and dominated the heavens and realms. Moreover, these 10 celestial emperors were all crowned celestial emperors on the Grand Evolution World Mountain, but the Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect eventually declined and was destroyed. During the ancient times, a mysterious calamity occurred, and it swept through the myriad of worlds. The entire Grand Evolution Heavenly Sect was completely annihilated. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Once we enter the Great Evolution World Mountain. Honorable Red Yen sighed emotionally and said, "Since then, the Great Evolution World Mountain has traveled through the myriad of worlds. No one could follow its trajectory, and it changed unpredictably. However, whenever it arrived in a world, it would stop for a short period of time, opening up profound mysteries, maintaining this state. 30 days. During these 30 days, cultivators below the Supreme Highness realm are allowed to enter the place to search for fortunate encounters. Rumor has it that before the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was destroyed, they left their orthodoxies and the orthodoxies of the 10 celestial emperors in the Great Evolution World Mountain. The great evolution world mountain roams the myriad worlds in search of a successor. However, after so many years, less than 100 people have successfully obtained the orthodoxy and become the successor of the great evolution heavenly sect. Ji Xian was stunned. There are almost 100 successors. Isn't that a lot? Ignorant? Xiao said disdainfully. Venerable Hong Yen smiled and said, Little friend, you might not know this, but it has been more than 1,000,000 years since the great evolution heavenly sect was destroyed. The hearts of Qin Nan and the others shuddered upon hearing this. Qin Nan was especially shocked. When he was born, the great upper realm had only been around for a few dozen thousand years. Moreover, the great evolution heavenly sect did not represent the entire history of the myriad world. How long had the myriad worlds been around before the great evolution heavenly sect was destroyed? Senior, does that mean all of you and the people in front are here to search for the orthodoxies on the great evolution world mountain? Qin Nan asked after he calmed down. No. Venerable Hong Yen shook his head. Venerable Hong Yen shook his head and smiled wryly. Not just anyone can obtain the legacy of the grand evolution heavenly sect and the 10 immortal emperors. People like us and most cultivators are only here for the great evolution world. There are other fortuitous encounters on the world mountain. After all, apart from the orthodoxies left behind by the great evolution heavenly sect and the celestial emperors, there are countless other fortuitous encounters and inheritances on the great evolution world mountain. On top of that, there are great benefits to becoming a Supreme Highness in the great evolution world mountain. The spirit of the celestial pole list asked, Cultivator, what do you mean? Martial Highness Red Yen shook his head and said, I'm not too sure what the benefits are. However, every time the great evolution world mountain descends on a realm, the geniuses of the realm, or even the geniuses from other realms, will rush over to try their luck in the great evolution world mountain. They will become a Supreme Highness. Some successors of top factions will even suppress their cultivation and wait until the Great Evolution World Mountain's Great Evolution World Mountain opens before they become a Supreme Highness. Martial Highness Red Yen exclaimed, That being said, the three of you are quite lucky. You don't know anything about the Great Evolution World Mountain, yet you managed to come here as peak Heavenly Highness Realm cultivators. You can become a Supreme Highness. Qin Nan and the others exchanged glances with one another. It was true that they did not know anything about the Great Evolution World Mountain, but they had purposely come here. Cultivator Red Yen, may I ask when the Great Evolution World Mountain's Great Evolution World Mountain will open? How will it open? When the time comes, how are we going to enter the mysterious world? The spirit of the celestial pole list asked immediately. The so-called mystery of the Great Evolution World Mountain lies at the peak of the mountain. Right now, we are halfway up the mountain. Hong Yen said. Mountain peak? Mountainside? Qin Nan and the others were stunned. Looking around, how did this look like a mountainside? This was clearly a small world. A bunch of country bumpkins. Xiao coldly snorted. The other youths couldn't help but laugh, their eyes filled with disdain. Venerable Hong Yen glared at them, then chuckled and said, The mystery will open in 10 days. At that time, endless divine light will descend from above, and the golden dragon path will appear. Following the great Tao, we can enter the mysterious world and fight for opportunities. When Qin Nan and the others heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief. It was so easy to enter Xuanji, which saved them a lot of effort. Cultivator Lin, fellow cultivators, I can see that you aren't familiar with the Great Evolution World Mountain. Why don't you come with us? Venerable Hong Yen invited them. We're planning to head to the Heaven Victory City of the Great Evolution World Mountain. The Heavenly Realm will be there. Chapter 2477. Venerable Hong Yen revealed an awkward expression. Just as he was about to say something, the spirit of the celestial pole list cupped his fists and said, "Fellow Taoist Hong Yen, thank you for helping us solve our doubts. As for traveling together, forget it. When the time comes, it's the same if we go there ourselves." After saying that, he glanced at Long Ruo. The latter immediately understood and took out 100 extremely rare dragon soul stones from his storage bag in one go. He handed them to Venerable Hong Yen and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoist. It's just a small gift, please accept it." Xiao and the others glanced at the dragon soul stones. The corners of their mouths curled slightly as they said, "You actually dare to take out such a crude item to embarrass yourself." After saying that, she no longer looked at the four of them and turned around to walk away. Venerable Hong Yen didn't mind and kept the dragon soul stones. He cupped his hands and apologized to Qin Nan and the others. "I'm really sorry. Xiao has been pampered since she was young, so she doesn't know any etiquette. I hope you don't take it to heart. Little Xiao, here's a map that was drawn a few days ago. It records the current situation of the Great Evolution World Mountain. Right now, the great powers of the heavenly realm and the other worlds have all come to the mountainside and opened up their own training grounds. Although martial arts are not allowed in the Great Evolution World Mountain, if you barge in recklessly, it will make them unhappy. It will cause trouble." Venerable Hong Yen exchanged a few more pleasantries with everyone before taking his leave and following Xiao and the others. "Damn it!" Looking at their backs, Ji Xian said angrily, "That Xiao is simply looking down on people. When the time comes, don't let me get the chance, or I'll definitely teach her a lesson." At this point, he realized that Qin Nan and the others were ignoring him. 10,000 worlds, heavenly realm, great evolution holy sect, 1 sect, 10 emperors, tsk. The spirit of the celestial pole list looked up at the sky, feeling very moved. Long Ruo also sighed with emotion. "I really didn't expect that there would be such a vast world above the blue dome. Every single one of the dragon soul stones I just took out is extremely precious in the primary upper realm. There are a total of 100 of them. A staggering amount of wealth. In the end, I didn't expect that in the eyes of this group of people, it was actually worthless." Qin Nan nodded in agreement. Although the words of the girl named Xiao were extremely unpleasant to the ears, she wasn't completely wrong. In this universe, the four of them were indeed a group of barbarians, frogs at the bottom of a well. Hey, do you all have to be like this? The most important thing now is, where are we going next? We can't just stand here and wait for the mystery to open, can we? Ji Xian shrugged. The spirit of the celestial pole list smiled faintly. "Indeed. That fellow Taoist Hong Yen is a good person, he left us a map." The spirit of the celestial pole list threw the jade slip up and pointed at it. The jade slip immediately shattered and turned into a light map that spread out in front of everyone. On the map, light rays of different sizes were flickering continuously, like stars in the sky. Each ray of light represented a city or an immortal palace. Beside each ray of light, there were also annotations written, making it clear at a glance. Oh my, there are almost 200 factions here. Just how many people have come to the Great Evolution World Mountain? Ji Xian clicked his tongue. Qin Nan and the others' eyes glinted. For them, the grander the scene, the better. Because of this, their chances of becoming a supreme heavenly venerate and obtaining other fortuitous encounters would be higher. I've taken a look. There are only a dozen immortal cities here. They were built by some of the major factions in the light realm, and anyone can enter and leave freely. Let's pick one of them and enter, the spirit of the celestial pole list said. Qin Nan came to a realization and said, "Brother Tian, I'm afraid I can't go with you. Before we came in, Wu Di gave me a portrait of the master of the Blue Dome and told me to find him alone. He also warned me that I can only go alone, or there will be an accident. Accident? Ji Xian's eyes widened. Holy shit. Find the master of the Blue Dome? Brother Lin, think about it. We've been through life and death for so many years. Can you not bring me along for such a thing? You? The spirit of the Celestial Pole List and Celestial Venerable Long Rua were also shocked. After they came back to their senses, they said unhappily, Brat, why are you joining in the fun? This is Xiaoji's fortune. If you run over, don't ruin things. Celestial Venerable Long Rua was moved and said, Brother Tian, we can't use force on the Great Evolution World Mountain. In my opinion, why don't we split up and enter different cities? When the time comes, we can communicate with each other through divine sense. That way, we can understand each other faster. There are thousands of worlds in this world. For them, this was a brand new vast world. There were too many things they needed to understand. That's good too. The spirit of the Celestial Pole List pondered for a moment and said, I just found out that our divine sense is suppressed in this Great Evolution World Mountain. How about this? I'll put a Celestial Pole Talisman into each of your bodies. When the time comes, we'll communicate through the talisman. The four of them discussed for a while, and tested the effects of the talisman before splitting up. Qin Nan chose an immortal city called Sword Profound Capital. According to the notes, most of the cultivators heading to this city were sword cultivators. Thinking of the two eccentricities of the Blue Dome Master, the chances of encountering him in this city should not be small. Flying was not prohibited at the peak of the Great Evolution World Mountain, so Qin Nan directly transformed into a ray of rainbow light and flew forward. At the same time, his great unity heavenly art was also secretly circulating in his body, silently absorbing the mysterious aura that filled the heaven and earth, and carrying out his cultivation. However, what Qin Nan did not know was that the moment he circulated the power in his body, on the mountainside of the Great Evolution World Mountain, among the many immortal palaces, there was an immortal palace that occupied an area of millions of miles and was engraved with countless mysterious talismans. A woman who was sitting cross-legged suddenly opened her eyes slowly. There seemed to be a peerless divine light in her eyes that flickered continuously, as if she could see through everything. Elder, I'm going out for a while. The woman spoke faintly. Her voice was like the sound of the Tao, clear and melodious. Holy maiden, this old man will accompany you. An old man with an aura as deep as the abyss immediately walked over from the other side and respectfully said, No need. The woman waved her hand and flew out of the immortal palace. She looked at the scene in front of her with a trace of doubt in her calm eyes. Chapter 2478. Around half an hour later, Qin Nan saw Sword Xuandu. From afar, it did not look like a city, but an immortal sword that had been sealed for many years. It was emitting wisps of sword intent that soaked into the void in all directions. In addition to that, the person who built the city was obviously extraordinary. The light blue city walls that were covered in mottled marks not only gave off an ancient feeling, but also made people feel that there were wisps of mysterious power of rules flowing inside. What grade is this sword Xuandu? Ancient Tao weapon? Or is it above a Tao weapon? Qin Nan thought of the question, but he did not have a deep understanding of the various artifacts, so he did not think too much about it. He quickly threw it to the back of his mind and followed the crowd into the city. Although the myriad worlds had far surpassed the level of the primary upper realm, everything felt unfamiliar to Qin Nan. However, there were many things that were no different from the primary upper realm. For example, in the city of Sword Xuandu, on the wide streets, there were all kinds of cultivators coming and going in an endless stream. The sounds of shouting could be heard from both sides. There were restaurants soliciting customers, and cultivators selling treasures. Ancient fragments of unknown origin, only 3 immortal essences per piece. Fellow cultivators, you only need to spend 3 immortal essences, and you might be able to get a peerless treasure. Today, the Myriad Spirit Tower is offering 100 bottles of 10,000 years snow wine, only 10 immortal essences per bottle. Qin Nan chose a corner and stopped in his tracks. He watched the cultivators enter the restaurant and the stalls, sizing them up. Since entering the city, almost every cultivator he saw was in the ruler realm. Most of them were in the Heaven Venerate realm. Some of them even emitted auras to the extent that he could not see through them. Just the Heaven Venerate realm experts in this city were comparable to the primary upper realm. However, Qin Nan was mentally prepared for this, so he didn't care at all. He didn't even release his divine thought to sense the aura of the powerhouses in the city. It wasn't that Qin Nan didn't want to. It was just that the strength of the myriad realms had far surpassed the great upper realm, and also far exceeded Qin Nan's knowledge. If Qin Nan rashly tried to sense it, no one knew if the experts in the city would discover it. And that would bring trouble. After waiting for about 100 breaths of time, Qin Nan saw an Empyrean realm old man take a jade slip from a stall and casually toss out something. Is that an immortal essence? Qin Nan looked over. The immortal spirit was about the size of a palm, and its shape was very irregular. Its body was light red, and there seemed to be a faint flame burning inside. The aura it emitted was slightly similar to the immortal intent of the primary upper realm. However, it was clearly more profound than the immortal intent of the primary upper realm. If it's the immortal intent of the primary upper realm, it will be able to refine an immortal essence like this once it transforms. In other words, our primary upper realm is considered a desolated place among the myriad realms. It's not like we're 2 completely different worlds. Qin Nan murmured. He scanned the street after a slight ponder. He soon saw a young man in a blue robe with the aura of the mid-stage ruler realm. He immediately went up to the young man and transmitted his voice. Fellow cultivator, I went into an ancient ruin and was teleported to the Great Evolution World Mountain by accident. I'm sorry. I don't have any immortal essences on me. Can you sell me some? The immortal essences were similar to the immortal stones of the primary upper realm. They were the currency used by the cultivators to trade. If he didn't have any immortal essences on him, he would have a hard time moving around. There were still 10 days until the entrance of the place was opened. The young man in a blue robe was startled. He noticed that Qin Nan's aura was already at the peak Heaven Highness realm. He said after a slight hesitation, Senior, I don't have much immortal essences on me. If you want to trade, it's fine. However, I don't know. What do you have in exchange? Qin Nan still had a lot of natural resources in his storage bag. He immediately took out some of them. The young man in a blue robe glanced at them and said without much interest, Senior, these things can only be traded for 10 immortal essences at most. So little Qin Nan's lips twisted. He said, Fine, 10 immortal essences it is. Qin Nan let out a sigh after finishing the trade with the young man in a blue robe. If he knew this was going to happen, he would have prepared more natural resources. Even if he sold everything in his storage bag, he would only be able to get 20 to 30 immortal essences. Let's go to the inn. Qin Nan shook his head and walked into the Myriad Spirit Inn. The inn had 7 floors. The first 3 floors were empty seats and were already crowded with people. The remaining 4 floors were rooms. Qin Nan casually found a seat and spent 3 immortal essences on a pot of wine. He drank and listened to the conversation. Fong. Hee. Guess who I bumped into yesterday? I actually met people from the Heavenly Flower Saint sect. Damn. Is it really the Heavenly Flower Saint sect? There are actually disciples among them? The Heavenly Flower Saint sect is one of the top forces in all the realms. Their current leader is a living celestial emperor. Brother Duan, I'm not trying to discourage you, but you must keep a low profile after the opening of the mystery. It's been more than 500 years since the last time the Great Evolution World Mountain appeared. It's been longer than any other time. Therefore, many great forces and aristocratic families have been waiting for their disciples. The disciples have been holding back for a long time, and this time, all of them are here. Do I need you to remind me? On my way here, I met the disciples of the Western Paradise and the Yama Temple. Sigh, I don't know why, but the Great Evolution World Mountain used to appear once every 50 to 100 years. It's been a long time. Qin Nan listened in silence. Suddenly, there was a commotion on the street. His seat was facing the street, so he looked down directly. On the street, 4 ancient divine beasts, Qilins, appeared. They were pulling a golden palanquin forward. Although their auras had been restrained, the aura of the ancient divine beasts and their ferocious aura still overflowed. It was chilling. The Qilins are extremely rare divine beasts in our grand upper realm. Moreover, these 4 Qilins have reached the heavenly venerable realm and have great potential. Such divine beasts are used to pull palanquins. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.